live stream, please?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Hey, doggy. Jesus.
Okay, Ralph, you're good.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. At this time, we will reconvene our meeting that started at 6:15 this evening. Mr. Smythe, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. Roll call, Mr. Gartz,
Here.
Mr. Hall,
I am here.
thank you, Mr. Krupa,
Here.
Ms. Mangan,
Here.
Mr. Nasser,
Here.
Mr. Sanfilippo,
He has an excused absence this evening.
Ms. Stites,
Here.
Mr. Wondrak,
Here.
thank you, and Mr. Adenizia.
Here. Thank you. Okay. At this time, we will go into committee reports, and we are going to go out of order this evening. We are going to start with finance and facilities. Dr. Handerham, would you take over, please?
My pleasure. Since I started in July and prior to my arrival, Dr. Cram, when he was the interim superintendent, we've been discussing the Wall High School's South Gym and the presence of Mercury. I've been giving at most meetings updates regarding our progress as we monitor and as we do different forms of testing. This evening, it is my pleasure to introduce a gentleman that is going to help us navigate this concern. And I'd like to share some of his biographical information. Dr. Lynch holds a PhD in public health with a minor in epidemiology from Robert Wood Johnson's Medical School, Rutgers University, and a Master of Science in Industrial Hygiene from Temple University. He is certified in comprehensive practice of industrial hygiene by the American Board of Industrial Hygiene. Dr. Lynch is New Jersey's leading certified industrial hygienist, specializing in assessing and managing mercury-containing gym floors, and co-authored an article in the New Jersey School Boards Association Journal on mercury in gym floors used by school districts addressed these floors. Dr. Richard Lynch previously served as an assistant professor of industrial hygiene and public health at Rutgers University. He has authored numerous peer-reviewed articles on air quality, mold, ergonomics, occupational and environmental illness, and COVID-19. Dr. Lynch, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our board meeting this evening and to share with you that I'm very grateful that you were working with us on this very, very important project. So, Dr. Lynch.
You're on mute, Doctor.
You're on mute.
The wonders of live streaming. Thank you very much for the opportunity to work with the Wall Schools on this issue. This is an important issue and one that we've worked with extensively over the last several years in a number of districts on three aspects: on the assessment aspect, on the management in place aspect, and we've also designed and overseen and validated removal of these floors in a number of districts as well. So certainly happy to help and recognize the importance of getting this right. I know that there's been some initial work that's been done by other consultants, and we've done a preliminary review of their reports, but we look forward to digging in and helping you to make sure that that the decisions that you'll be making moving forward are done with the utmost of rigor, so that you can really make sure that you're protecting your stakeholders, your students, your teachers, who would be impacted by whatever decisions need to be made regarding these floors. So I look forward to assisting you, and certainly we'll get started by doing a detailed review of all the reports, and we'll be doing our own site visits as well, and be providing you with some recommendations as we learn more.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you. Okay. So at this time, I will turn over to Mr. Gartz for F&F.
Yes, Dr. Lynch, thank you for being here. At this point, we're going to continue with the rest of our committee meeting and our workshop. So I would, give you the approval to be excused for the rest of the evening. We look forward to your work as the weeks move on here.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Good
Hi, Doctor.
Mr. Smythe, can I turn over the F&F agenda to you to move us forward?
Yes, you can. Thank you. And I apologize for no video, but however, my video doesn't want to seem to work. So I apologize. Okay, with regard to the agenda, we have first on the agenda is our enterprise account update, which, it's August, so we don't have a current update for the 2021 school year, other than that we are making preparations in accordance with the school reopening plan. However, on the agenda for next week will be action items approving the pricing for breakfast and lunch for the 2021 school year. And it's included with the agenda, and these will be on the agenda for next week's business meeting, and there's no change in the pricing for the 21 school year compared to the 2019-20 school year. Any questions on food service or the food service pricing? Good. With regard to the RAP program, the district is moving ahead with a before and after school program at the elementary schools for the 2021 school year. The charge from the committee, the F&F committee, is to look to maintain pricings at their current level or the rates that are being charged parents. And the way the rates are structured, they're approximately $5 an hour per child. That's how the rates were originally designed. We're all aware that the before and after school program took a pretty big hit last year with the school closure. We're looking to develop a budget based on a break-even point, but being cognizant of the additional hours being included in the after-school program because of the early dismissal. That shortfall or anticipated shortfall is not going to be made up with regard to the rates being charged to parents. They're going to remain the same as the prior school year. The goal is to be revenue expense neutral at the end of the year, and we're looking to address the other cost centers within the RAP program to achieve that goal. But there'll be more information to come, but with regard to the rates, they're going to remain the same as they did in the 1920 school year.
Mr. Smythe, can I just comment on
RAP program?
Can I just comment on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
I think it's important for the board to know that in committee we had quite a discussion about different variations of how to move forward, knowing that the account took a little bit of a hit last year, in fact, trying to factor that in. But what won the day in our committee discussion was the situation that our parents and community are in, and keeping our price fair and at the levels they are this year, seeking to a break even. We know that our rates are more than competitive with other options, and we want to make sure that we're a good alternative for our community, and that was really how we netted out to that point, as you said. So I just wanted to kind of add a little bit of color to that discussion.
Okay. Any other comments with regard to RAP? Seeing none, with regard to item 2, facility projects update, we've already commented on item B for the South Gymnasium at the high school. So the other item is the HVAC Summer 2020 project. We have, as been discussed in prior meetings, we've had an HVAC renovation project for Allenwood School, Old Mill, and Central Elementary School. The bulk of the work being performed at Allenwood Elementary School and Central Elementary School. Old Mill was receiving unit ventilators in 2 classrooms and a small group instruction room, but 3 instructional spaces. Those units have been installed at Old Mill. They're doing checkout procedures and startup for that equipment at Old Mill, and that work is substantially complete. Allenwood Elementary School would be the second largest project out of the 3 schools. The work has progressed nicely at that location. It also included a new electric service at Allenwood Elementary School. That work, or that changeover, was being done today. Allenwood School is without power for a number of hours. I have to say, a giant thank you to JCP&L and what they've done and the commitment they made in providing the electric service at both Allenwood Elementary School and Central Elementary School. After the outage, after the tropical storm and the extent of the outage, that was in jeopardy. And there was serious concern that we were not going to be able to change the service over start of school, as obviously regularly scheduled work was not a priority. However, although JCP&L was nearly complete in addressing all the outages, they continued with their commitment to the 2 projects, the 2 elementary schools, because they knew how important it was for us to be able to have that electric service to operate in September. And they came through. They have already completed at Central Elementary School, and today was the final changeover at Allenwood Elementary School. You probably saw the activity going up with new poles and new transformers over by Allenwood. Work remaining in there is startup of equipment, new drop ceiling in the main hallway, but we don't see any issues with regard to the work being completed at Allenwood Elementary School. At Central Elementary School, that was the largest project or most complicated out of all the 3 locations. The majority of the work was to provide air conditioning or new unit ventilators in the 2nd floor of the front of the school. The work has been progressing nicely through the summer and has been on target for completion prior to the end of school. We've been able to gain access to the 2nd floor classrooms as well as a majority of the 1st floor classrooms, where a lot of the work was being performed to service the 2nd floor classrooms. So we're able to get in there to bring the school to a condition that's ready to open it in September. But that's been known throughout this whole project, and additional staff are being brought in for the remainder of the summer to accomplish that task. There's still significant work that needs to be done, but it's going to be outside the classrooms and in the remote boiler room for the completion of that work, and that is on schedule to be ready for the start of school in September. An additional complication to that project and an item being added to the facility project update is an incident that occurred over the weekend at Central Elementary School, where we had a shutoff valve fail in the 2nd floor hallway in the front of the school. That valve failed over the weekend. We're going to estimate sometime after 4 o'clock on Friday and Sunday morning, when our building custodial supervisor had visited the school. Based on the amount of water that was evident, we believe it happened sometime Saturday, perhaps Saturday morning. But there was a valve that failed that from a water fountain that shot water across the hallway up against the far wall, creating damage to the wall, the ceiling, and the water that cascaded down the hallways, stairwells into a number of classrooms, and to two classrooms that are divided into 4 small group instruction rooms that took pretty much the blunt of the damage because it came down from the ceiling in those areas, damaged some dividing doors, the carpeting. But The building custodial supervisor, it was fortunate that he did visit the school on Sunday, got a hold of Mr. Moretta, our facilities manager. In turn, custodial staff and maintenance staff were called in on Sunday to respond to the emergency, which they did. They picked up equipment to vacuum up the water that was in the hallways, in classrooms. Our insurance company was contacted. The adjuster was on site that same day. And an insurance remediation company by the name of All Risk was called in that same day as well. They were on site Sunday. They were there in the afternoon, and till about 12:30 in the morning, they were on site. And then they were back again on Monday along with district staff, continuing to remove tables, desks, anything that was damaged, taking inventory on what has been damaged by the water, relocating it to the cafeteria and outside the building, so that we can continue with the cleanup, as well as the continuation of getting the school ready for operation in September. Additional information needs to be obtained. The firm that was brought in through the insurance company, All Risk, taken samples of any building materials that were damaged and may need to be removed or remediated during this process for the purposes of testing for asbestos. We anticipate that those results will be in by the end of the week, which will help identify the scope of the work and the duration for the duration that it's going to take to complete the remediation project. Again, there's a number of floor tiles that were damaged in the corridors. I think based on the quick response of the custodial and maintenance team, they salvaged a lot of the floor tiles by bringing in the equipment to remove the water. There's fans in there. There's dehumidifiers that are in there that are extracting the moisture that's in the air. And I think based on that, we're going to be able to save a lot of the floor tile. However, there's areas in the corridor and in some classrooms that it's going to be where those materials are going to need to be replaced. And again, with regard to the scope of work and the duration of that work, we need to obtain a little bit more information, or the firm brought in by the insurance company is going to have to find the results of that asbestos testing to better determine the scope. Any additional questions or comments with regard to the HVAC project and segue into the flood incident at Central?
Brian, I just have as a chair of the FNF, I just wanted to talk a little bit, nothing about the projects with the HVAC, but in terms of the South Gym, I just want to make it clear that as of today, there is no plans to have that gym accessed during the reopening of the high school. It's not part of the plans as of today. So I just want to make that clear, that there will be no student or faculty access to that space moving forward as of today. And then in terms of the unfortunate circumstance at Central, the committee and I believe the board as a whole is committed to clear and consistent communication about what's next. And as Brian said, there's testing being done and work being done to provide us more information. And it's our goal to provide as much information to the parents of that school specifically about what we plan to do as we get that information. And that's important for the community to know. Why we'd love to be able to tell you everything that we can do right now. It's just happened and, fell in our lap on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. So we're working through all the challenges and, promise clear and consistent communication about what's next.
Ms. Megan?
I think it's important that we as a board also acknowledge the teachers who may have lost materials that they've used for many years to provide a good education for our students, and that we make a commitment to do our best to ensure that, we can do whatever we can to help replace the items that, they probably used for years in their classrooms to help educate students. So I think it's really important we acknowledge that as well. So as well as having complete transparency and making a commitment to ensure that community members and parents know what's going on, I think it's also important to ensure the teachers who were affected that they will be made whole with in regards to classroom materials and supplies that they need to utilize.
And just to piggyback off that, I was over there Sunday with Dr. Handerhan, We walked the whole school, pretty much every single classroom. And the one thing I can say 100% is that it's all about the safety and making sure everything is better than it was before it happened, before anything goes forward. And you know, Dr. Handerhan was very clear with that with the staff when I was there. So so if anybody has any questions about safety or things not being right, certainly it's on, it's number one on the list, and there will be no corners cut or anything like that. And, you know, I believe almost immediately, you know, just probably within a few hours, emails were sent out to all the parents to let them know what was going on, and the staff found out because, you know, it's unfortunate, and we're going to fix it and we're going to make it better. That's it. Mr. Smythe?
Okay. Nothing else on facility project updates. Item number 3, 3 and 4, they're going to be agenda items for next week. This is an annual approval. One is for the Shore Conference official fees, which there's an attachment, as well as the Wall High School Athletic Department event staff rates, which both, well, with regard to the high school event staff rates, they're the same as last year, with one additional item, which would be the last item on the list for the event rates, and that is, I believe, a surfing judge. Yeah, surf judge was added to the list for the high school event rates. There's no questions. This will be an action item on at next week's business meeting. Yes.
Brian, I'm sorry. Just these rates, is that just for the event, or is that per hour?
For the surf judge, I'm going to go with that. It's for the event, but that is something that we could look to clarify prior to next week's business meeting, and that will be included on as an agenda item. We'll get an updated list from the athletic department.
Okay, thank you.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a quick question?
and I would clarify that it would be the event because the other items are like per game, per surf competition, and where it's per hour that's identified for the trainer and the lifeguard.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Stites.
I just had a very quick question, and it's related to it's the top of the page, is 2020-21 Shore Conference recommended official fees. On number 5, individual gymnasts competing in meets with other Shore Conference teams shall pay the following official fee: $7 per judge. Is that the student that's paying that fee?
Okay, a little out of my wheelhouse. I would have to defer that to Mr. Radu, but it does appear that way. Because this is a recommendation from the Shore Conference.
I just thought that was a little unusual. All right, I guess, should I direct that to Mr. Radu then, Mr. Smythe?
Oh, no, I'll obtain the information and we'll have that clarified prior to this being on the agenda for next week.
Thank you.
But I would also think that it would, in reading it, that perhaps the district that has individual gymnasts that are competing with other teams contribute toward those official fees. So it's still the district, but they're only doing it on a per student basis. Okay. Item number 5 is the adoption of the new bid threshold. The bid threshold, which is established by the Department of Treasury. It's included in 18A. Established the bid threshold originally, and then every 5 years it is reviewed and updated by the governor and the department. Currently, as of July 1, 2020, the bid threshold was raised from $29,000 to $32,000 for all New Jersey, for public school districts. And for public school districts with a qualified purchasing agent, the threshold went from $40,000 to $44,000. So like in 2010, the threshold was 26. They upped it $3,000 to 29,000 in 2015. And in 2020, they've increased it to 32,000. And with qualified purchasing agent in 2010, it was 36,000. It was increased 4,000 in 2015, and then another 5 years in 2020, it was increased up to the current 44,000. The statute is referenced within the resolution, which is included as an attachment. And this was discussed in committee and is scheduled to be on the agenda next week at the business meeting. Comments, questions? Seeing none? Okay. With regard to item number 6, it would be approval of the revised budget for the 2021 school year. Again, there's a resolution that's attached. This would be an action item for next week. If you recall, state aid notices or revised state aid notices came out in July, where Wall Township received a state aid reduction of $162,385. Has since come out from the Department of Education that is allowing school districts that state aid reduction. One of the methods, and as recommended in the resolution, is to utilize excess surplus or utilize us as a revenue source to make up that loss in state aid. If you recall, through the budget process, we budgeted approximately $1 million in budgeted fund balance as a revenue in the 2021 school year. After the school closure and identifying what we anticipated as some savings over the last, and also to address budget shortfalls that we anticipated in the 2021 school year with additional educational opportunities over the summer, technology, virtual software, and for computer hardware, for remote learning, et cetera. We increased the budget $500,000 or our budgeted fund balance because we anticipated additional surplus. That was included as a revenue. What we'll be doing here is increasing our budgeted fund balance or applying additional anticipated surplus in the amount of $162,385 to make up that reduction in state aid. In reviewing the 2021 school year budget and with all the unknowns in the budget, we feel that we need to go into this year with the budget that was approved, and we should not be looking at trying to go into the year with a reduction of $162,000 based on that state aid. This would be coming from surplus, and it's not anticipated that that would be an issue at any time during the year with regard to our surplus calculation. And if any any unused funds of that additional surplus unused at the end of the 2021 school year, it would revert back to surplus. Any questions? The other opportunities that districts could use is you could use a withdrawal from emergency reserve, maintenance reserve, or the application of surplus to make up the budget or the state aid shortfall. And the recommendation is to apply surplus for that reduction and not draw down from either maintenance reserve or the emergency reserve. Questions, comments on? Okay. With regard to the next item, employee benefit management platform, in the past, 2 years ago, we entered into a contract with Benaware, which was a third party. The purpose of the benefit management platform is so that employees may, they perform their annual enrollment online. And then if new employees come into the district, they're onboarding instead of filling out paper applications for health benefits, and that information being manually entered or provided to our health benefits provider, new employees would enter their information online as well. One is for efficiency, but really the primary purpose of it was so that employees could review the different options available with regard to health benefits. We offer a number of plans. We have ones that mirror the state educators health plan in the Direct 10 and offer the Direct 15. We also offer a Direct 20. There's a EPO, a deductible plan. So there's a number of different options that are available. And they're complicated, and trying to sit through and compare them and see what's best for each individual situation is not easy. And the intent of having an online platform so that an employee would be able to enter their information, answer certain questions, and be able to have a comparison of the different benefits that were available, and so that they can better determine which plan is best suited for them, which would what the cost would be as the contractual obligation that through Chapter 78 or through the collective bargaining agreement, as a contract deduction, as well as what the out-of-pocket expenses would be based on an employee situation, personal situation with respect to each plan. That was the intent of Benaware. We also offered, as part of that platform, additional ancillary or supplementary insurance, such as disability. There was also some credit protection and some other available services being provided, and that was provided by Chubb and a company called Gettysburg. And the intent of that was we were going to offer those products to our employees, and those companies were going to bear the cost of the Benaware platform. It wasn't working out, as intended. It wasn't really providing the side-by-side comparison of the different benefits being made available to the employees, where they can make an informed decision, which was the goal. We're having trouble having, new employees, providing their information online and having that automatically updated to our provider. That was still being done manually. Going into the current school year, they were looking to charge additional fees for, the service. So we discontinued the contract with Benaware as recommended by Brown & Brown, our healthcare provider. Also, with school closure, we were in the middle of the pandemic. We did what was called a passive enrollment. So all the employees essentially rolled over as of July 1 into the plan they had, unless they contacted the business office and made a change. And they were notified of that. Notices went out to all the employees, which was how it was done in the past, would be referred to as a passive open enrollment. Nothing changes unless you notify us of the change. So, and that really doesn't serve the employee when we're trying to educate them on the different plans we're offering, because we're continuing to try to offer better plans. Also, if you recall in the board retreat, board attorney provided an update and some information with regard to new plans that are coming out in the state. One is the New Jersey Educators Plan. All districts are going to be required to have an open enrollment this fall prior to the July 1 start date for the Educators Plan, and we're not permitted to have a passive enrollment. And what will happen in that situation is that any existing employee who does not actively select one of the benefits that are offered by the district, such as our Direct 10 or Direct 15 or one of the other plans, then that employee will be automatically enrolled in the Educators Health Plan or New Jersey Educators Health Plan, which is significantly different than plans that we currently offer. The contribution is no longer based on a percentage of premium. It's based on a percentage of salary. And we may have a number of employees who may want to enroll in it. We also want them to enroll in it, consciously or actively, select that plan as opposed to being automatically enrolled in it. And that's not going to be the district's requirement. That's a requirement from the legislation that came out. So we're looking to avoid that, so we can have a passive enrollment. So what we're looking at is, that was a long segue into what we're looking for is a new benefits platform. One is offered by through our broker, Brown and Brown Metro. It is a platform or a benefit software that checks all the boxes of what we were looking for as far as when an employee enrolls in the platform or logs into the platform, all their personal information based on our human resources department is already populated. You don't have to fill out forms with redundant information. That's all populated. There's a attendant that helps you through the process that will walk you through asking questions with regard to your personal circumstances, or you can skip the attendant and choose to answer the questions individually. And then it gives you a side-by-side comparison of all the plans the district offers and what the cost would be based on each plan. And they also recommend a plan, and that's strictly recommended on cost. And this is also based on in-network services, but they'll tell you what your contract contribution will be, as well as what is the expected out-of-pocket expenses would be, so that our employees would be making informed decisions on what benefits they are selecting. We also looked at another provider that deals with school districts, and for a lot of the services provided by the district, we use a company called Frontline. It's our attendance is provided through there, professional development is provided through there, some other services through curriculum, RTI services. I would ask Dr. Gleason, but again, there's a lot of services that we use Frontline for, and it would be beneficial. And I was really hoping that they would have a platform that served our needs. We had a conference call with them yesterday to further discuss it. However, they don't, and they said that they don't have a product that is quite there yet to meet the needs of New Jersey school districts, and the complication with the various health benefits and the various litany of requirements with regard to calculations of premiums, et cetera. So, we were hoping to have a choice of two to really consider, but that's been narrowed down to one by Brown and Brown. We're currently having discussion, or through our broker Brown and Brown having discussion. We're having them discuss with those ancillary providers such as Gettysburg and Chubb Insurance to see what we can charge them to make their services available on the platform, or to have them contribute directly to the software to offset the cost of this benefit platform. We've estimated there's an initial start fee, which is approximately $4,700, and then it's a per member, per employee fee based on the number of available, or a number of eligible employees, and that would be employees eligible for benefits. So we're estimating that the cost is going to be approximately $31,000 a year to have this benefits platform. I'm providing this as an update. Again, we don't have the piece with regard to contributions from the other ancillary insurance providers such as Chubb, Gettysburg. We would like to include Prudential, but apparently there's a hiccup with Prudential being offered through a broker. So we're continuing to work on that, but this is something that we're trying to move on sooner rather than later, so that we can have it implemented for an open enrollment in November, so that we can have that open enrollment for the employees, because we're required to have that for a new start date of July 1. And just as a piece of information associated with this, all new employees that are hired beyond July 1, 2020 are going to be required to be enrolled in the New Jersey Educators Health Plan come January 1, 2020. So this is evolving. We have to make adjustments in our health plan, et cetera. And it's going to be one more plan, and it's significantly different in the sense that it's heavily geared toward in-network services, and the premiums, the rates being charged, or the premium equivalents that will be charged to our employees, are going to be based on a percentage of salary as opposed to a percentage of premium, which is different. So, trying to, as an employee, trying to evaluate the different plans and what the costs are going to be associated with each of those plans is becoming more and more difficult. And this is why this type of platform and the costs associated is being recommended to move forward with our self-insurance plan. Questions, comments? I know that was a lot, so.
Hey, Brian, you're expecting us to vote on this next week? Is that what this is about?
Depending on what the information that, if we're able to receive information this week and we could put a packet together for the board on Friday with the cost, then yes. Otherwise, we'll push it to if it's something that the board's not comfortable enough, or if it's not explained enough detail, then we would look to move it to September.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend it be moved to September. You just went on for quite a while. It's $31,000. I personally would vote no if you gave me something on Friday. So I would just ask that it be pushed to September. Just my opinion.
Yeah, as far as if I could jump in, I knew that based on our our meeting a while ago, I knew about the New Jersey Educators Plan coming in. That was sure, but this is the first time I'm hearing. I don't remember hearing about this at the FNF meeting about the changes over here. And like I said, if we're going to spend $31,000, I want to like to echo Russell. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. So if we could schedule it maybe for an FNF before that, before the September meeting, whenever the next FNF meeting is, to delve into it a little bit more, Brian, so we can really understand it. We can go back and give our colleagues not on the FNF committee, some deeper information. That I think that would be helpful. If we can definitely put it off till September, that would be my wish as well.
Okay, well, and this is, progressing, through the school year with regard to the educators' health plan. They haven't even come out with the what the premiums are going to be through the state health benefits, which is going to define what the plans are, or the specifics of the plans, so that the actuaries for our broker can identify the cost. So, there's still information that we're waiting on in order to provide these plans. So, and I'll say though, pushing it to September will make it a very tight window in trying to have an open enrollment for the fall prior to the January enrollment period. I'll review with the broker in more detail to see what they're able to do. And because even if we can't do it for the fall, for the January 1, and we have to have a workaround for the active open enrollment for the employees, we can do that. I still think it would be something that would be beneficial for all the employees who make this decision on an annual basis on what plan is best suited for them, what's being offered, so that, and they can manage it throughout the school year as well. But mainly for the purpose of being able to have those comparisons on the different plans that are being offered. But I'll revisit it with the broker. I'll see where they stand with regard to the ancillary insurances being provided. I mean, on one hand, I would love for them to provide 100% of it. I'm hoping, if that's the case, then that may sway the board to be more enthusiastic of approving it in August as opposed to September. But I'll wait to see that information from that Brown & Brown comes back with us. Yes, Aaron.
I just want to jump in.
Well,
So
we have 2 weeks to have a FNF meeting to.
Oh, sorry. How many other districts are using an employee benefit management platform at this time? Do we know?
No, I do not. I don't have that.
This is the first that I'm hearing about it. I know, from my experience in my own district working with Brown & Brown, it's always been past practice that they've brought to the district the different plans and educated the faculty going from there. So I'm just a little bit confused as why we're going to spend $31,000 when, that's part of the package deal that I believe we have with them, is that they're educating the district employees in regards to all the different plans and how it matches for them. And so I'm just trying to see the cost, why all of a sudden we're going to spend $31,000 And I haven't heard of anybody using a management platform.
Okay, well, I could look to provide a list that the districts that they service through this. Um, You know, the prior practice that would still exist for anybody who wants an in-person, counseling, because we have that during open enrollment. But typically the way that's done is they visit the faculty rooms and they sit there through the day, and anyone who wants to come in can sit down and review the policies and have any questions answered. We'll be able to provide that to the extent possible, especially this fall, with distancing, et cetera. But this is something, they give advice or answer questions with regard to each plan, but they don't sit down and go to the extent of asking how many times do you go to the doctor, or each family member, the number of prescriptions that are being filled, and those are the type of questions that are requested or reviewed as part of the analysis when you're doing it online. And then you're able to compare the platforms and sit there and, like buying a car, and you have 4 choices up there, and here are the 4 plans, these are the costs, these are the benefit comparisons, so that you can make an informed decision.
Mr. Bartz?
Thanks, Ralph. I think just to reiterate Brian, Aaron's point and Joe's point, my point earlier, I just think it's a lot. While it's understood that it would help the staff if it was out earlier, I don't believe this board's ready to make this decision right now. So September is
Okay.
going to be it as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Mr. Smythe, are we ready to move on to item 8?
Yes, we are. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. The district reopening, it involves many aspects. It's a big curriculum and instruction conversation. It's a facilities conversation. It's a health conversation. It's a transportation conversation. And I'd like to address in particular the reopening components for finance and facilities. So to give you an update, the operations department has been very busy preparing for the reopening. Plexiglass barriers have been installed throughout the district to provide personal protection in the workspaces. Personal protective equipment has been ordered, and we are in receipt of plexiglass barriers, face shields, masks with clear mouth panels, latex gloves, and scrubs. We are in possession of handheld temperature screeners, and we are expecting the delivery of temperature screening stations next week. In order to ensure social distancing to the greatest extent possible, maintenance and custodial services have been removing non-essential furniture and supplies out of classrooms and storing them on premises. Another item that is currently being worked on is staffing needs. Staffing needs are currently being assessed. In the event that student-specific needs cannot be addressed by the availability of properly certificated teaching staff, an online service will be secured. That said, every effort will be made to provide Wall Township teachers to students in the all virtual learning environment. The staffing needs are literally dictated by the number of students electing the all virtual schooling option, and also leave requests. I encourage all Wall Township public school families to declare in the Genesis parent portal whether or not they wish to enroll their child in the virtual school by the end of business day on Thursday, August 20th. For those families that have not yet completed the yes or no for the transportation waiver in the parent portal, I encourage them to do that as well. More details with respect to the virtual instructional plan will be addressed during the curriculum and instruction portion of this meeting. Our goal is to provide this community with as much real-time information as possible. The plan is evolving each and every day. I also encourage community members to go on our website, click on the reopening plan, and there is an FAQ. Not only can you find the district plan, but you can also find frequently asked questions. District administrators have received a lot of questions regarding the reopening of school, and what we've tried to do is categorize them and address them as we're able to respond. So I encourage you to please keep looking, and the FAQ is updated as quickly as we can respond. So I thank you. Mr. President?
Thank you, Dr. Handerhan. Does anybody have any questions? No? Seeing none, we will now move on to policy. So right back at you, Dr. Handerhan.
This month, this summer, we've been working on policy with respect to the reopening, the virtual school, various acts that have been put into place, in particular, the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and we're also hitting areas where we need to update policy on religion in schools, and also the HEAP participation policy for student athlete safety. Mr. Hall, would you like to chime in as chair of policy?
Sure. Basically, we had a policy meeting on each of the 5 that are listed here. Here just to get my notes, but you know, it's basically taking everything from the Department of Education's guidance in the Road Back Restart and Recovery Plan, and basically memorializing it into the policy. So there's nothing in there that's going to be much different than you're going to find in the normal Road Back document from the state. The remote learning option for the families, the 1648.02, again, same thing. The New Jersey Department of Education is just clarifying the expectations regarding the full-time remote learning options for families. So again, basically, we're creating a policy that basically takes the guidance from the Department of Education and just kind of memorializing it into a policy that kind of goes along that we're following what the state is basically telling us we have to do. So not a lot of leeway for us to kind of go off script there. The Federal Families First Response Act, again, that's also a new one. That's a little bit more involved. This policy will put us in line with the federal laws, all the different laws that have to do with the Federal Family First Response Act. Kind of was like an overview, but it also strengthened and changed and basically enhanced some of the underlying things like the family medical leave and some other ones that will be mentioned in the policy if you were to read it. So again, that one really is bringing us into line with what the federal government has passed through legislation and signed by the president. So again, it's not like we're doing anything outrageous. We're following exactly what the government is telling us we have to do. Religion in schools, that's a revision of a policy, 2270. This policy was very minor in nature. It was just some tweaks to align us again with the Department of Education guidelines that changed. So again, that was a recommendation to change some verbiage there. But again, that was again from the guidance from the Department of Education making changes. Therefore, we need to stay up to date with what their guidance says. And the last one is the HEAP participation policy. That's also a revision that basically has to do with the NJSIA puts out guidelines on what must be done when there's outside activities where student athletes any practices or games, and what the adult supervision of those players need to do to make sure, once the temperatures reach certain thresholds, and to keep the athletes safe. So again, those changes were recommended and put in by the NJSIA. So we're taking their new information and just again melding that into our existing policy. So again, all these policies are really just perfunctory policies that need to be done to stay current with existing law and regulations. So I think that really is it. I don't know if Dr. Gleason or Dr. Hanahan has anything else specifically about it, but that's the just general overview of what we're doing.
Thank you. I think you did a great job providing an overview. Are there any questions? Okay, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to curriculum and instruction. So Dr. Gleason. You're on mute. There
Good
you
evening, everyone. Mr. Krupa, as Chair of Curriculum Instruction, would you like me to lead us through the first part of the agenda?
There's a lot on it, so whatever you think is best in terms of addressing that list, just FYI to everybody that the committee and instruction, the curriculum and construction group did meet, and it's an ever-changing landscape, that's for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. Yes, we absolutely, the curriculum instruction met, as Mr. Krupa said. We'll have that agenda item as the last item because I think that's going to require the most discussion on virtual school. But I'll take you through the first 4 items, the first of which is the summer curriculum revision report. This report is provided to the board annually each August, and it's an accounting of all the courses that underwent revisions during the summer, as well as any curriculum that was written for new courses that were developed. The report that you have in your packet provides the grade and department, the number of hours that were budgeted for the curriculum revisions, and then you'll also see the rationale for the revision or the new writing. This summer, much of the revisions were related to the continued rollout of reading workshop in grades 3 to 5. We're starting to make some adjustments to the new revised 2020 standards in social studies. You'll see some of those revisions in there. We have some changes in scope of content at the high school level with AP classes, and those are required as per the College Board. And you'll also see quite a bit of curriculum writing that is part of the required integration in grades 6 through 12 of the social, economic, and political contributions of persons with disabilities and members of the LGBTQ community. These integrations are required to be in place for the beginning of the 2020-21 school year, and this is in grades 6 through 12. And you'll see that we included these integrations in both English language arts in grades 6 through 8, as well as the social studies curriculum for grades 6 through 12. I should say 6 through 12 for both English language arts and social studies. You'll see each of those rationales in there. Some of those crosswalks included timelines, biographies, and other authentic texts that reveal some of those very important contributions, as I mentioned, persons with disabilities and members of the LGBTQ community. Are there any questions on the summer curriculum revision report? Andy?
You're on mute, Andy.
I was just noticing that the LGBTQ content is in social studies 6 and social studies 7, English, all of that. Isn't this also addressed in the health and physical education curriculum?
It is. There's another integration that's required as part of health and phys ed. that really expands upon a standard that's already been in place with regard to gender expression and sexual identity. So the state has asked that we sort of expand what we've already done there, and that it ties in not quite to the level that we have here in English and social studies, because again, we're looking at it more from the health aspect in health and phys ed, where here we're looking at it, as I mentioned, from historical contributions from those two particular groups. So you're seeing it expanding across the curriculum, but it is in the health phys ed curriculum as well. Any other questions on the curriculum revisions? Okay, great. The next item on your agenda is the District Professional Development Plan. This again is an annual report. This report originates with a needs assessment that is provided to teachers and administrators in the spring, so that we can really get a feel for what are the needs of our teachers. We give a long list of possible topics, and then we also provide some open comment boxes so that they can add their own thoughts and suggestions. We tie that data together with our district goals and initiatives, and that those form the basis for the PD goals for the upcoming school year. So in that professional development plan, you will see the goals focus this year on continuing to build the capacity of teachers in developing high quality standards-based lessons. We'll always have that in there. We always dedicate money so that teachers can continue to hone their craft. The second goal is supporting teachers in meeting the needs of at-risk students through our RTI framework. And I've provided you over the last couple of years the specifics of that RTI framework, or multi-tiered system of supports. We have a brand new digital framework that we'll be using to house that data called RTI Direct. So we'll be providing teachers professional development in how to navigate that digital platform. I think most importantly, we are dedicating money and towards teaching teachers how to improve digital instruction and remote learning. And of course, that's new as a result of the school closure and pandemic. And the fourth goal is a continued rollout of a goal we developed last year, which was the Teacher Leadership Academy. Unfortunately, we had gotten really right to the starting line. We had teachers that had applied, they had their portfolios ready for review by the Teacher Leadership Committee, and then we closed school. So we were not able to continue with that academy, but we have teachers ready to go, and hopefully they're ready to step back up to the plate in the fall, and we'll continue with the Teacher Leadership Academy. Any questions on the district PD plan?
Mr. Krupa?
You muted.
There we go. Do you have an idea of the number of people who will be in this cohort this year yet?
I don't, Andy, but I will report out once we come back in and we see who from last year was ready to go, if they're going to continue with the process of presenting their sort of initiative, and then if there'll be room to allow for additional applicants also. So I'll have a report for the board in early fall when we come back. Okay. The second plan that is on the agenda is the district mentoring plan. This is also another annual report that the board sees every year. It's required to approve, and it outlines the district's procedure for induction and mentoring of both novice teachers and also new to district teachers. Some of those procedures include monthly meetings between the mentors and the mentees, for as little as 4 weeks for new to district teachers, and upwards of 8 weeks and beyond for novice teachers that are new to the field. Some of the changes in the document this year is the expanded topics on teacher evaluation and how that might look a little different, especially in the hybrid model where teachers are providing instruction a little bit differently, and then also on virtual instruction and remote learning. So the goal is we're setting up new teachers for success in the district and partnering them together with strong mentors that we hope that they seek out beyond their required 4 to 8 weeks. Any questions on the mentoring plan? Speaking of new teachers, hopefully you all received your invitation to new teacher orientation. It's that time of year again when we welcome our brand new teachers to the district, which is always exciting, and I'm sure a little nerve-wracking for new teachers, especially in the new environment, but we hope to put their minds at ease and get them started with 3 days of training at the end of the month. So new teacher orientation will be held from August 26th to 28th. You have the agenda in your packet, so you can see the topics include everything from professionalism to digital literacy, special education, and a variety of other topics. They'll receive their new technology, and they have an opportunity beyond the workshops to talk with the supervisors. I have to say the supervisors run this show, and they do a great job every year. They are the coaches for the teachers, and they set up the training, and they do a great job every year. I think the best parts for the teachers, as well as anybody who come, are the breakfast on the first day and lunch provided by Chick-fil-A also on the first day. So if you can't make breakfast, please feel free to come back for lunch. Lunch is provided by our representatives from our insurance brokers, and they come and they provide our teachers some of the offerings that are available to them during lunch, and they host the lunch. So we hope that you can join us this year. Breakfast is at 8 o'clock on August 26th, and I'm sure they would love to see some of our board members. Any questions on new teacher orientation?
Dr. Gleason?
Yes.
The agenda that I saw, maybe I misread it. It looked like there was a lot of new teachers being spoken to for several hours. Is that the case, or is it more of an interactive, participatory, get to know you, hands-on type of process?
It's a little bit of both. It's absolutely a little bit of both. It starts with a very informal breakfast, introductions by Dr. Handerhan and myself. I run the first workshop on RTI. And like a good class should be, there's time for talking to or at people, and then there's time for them to ask questions and interact with each other. And some of the workshops are actually a lot of fun. We do some kind of do's and don'ts on professionalism and social media. We provide some scenarios, and we ask teachers their input and thoughts and some of the scenarios that they've been through before. And so I would say that it's a nice blend of all of those models, Russell.
Thank you. And
You're welcome.
My other question is, how much, what's different about this year's orientation than last year's?
The difference in this year's orientation is obviously the shift to virtual instruction and how that will look in Wall Township. We have some teachers that will be coming over from other districts that did that differently in their district. And we have some teachers that are brand new to teaching that may have never provided virtual instruction. So I would say that although we have always provided one of the workshop pieces on digital instruction and all of the digital apps, we've been doing that workshop for a couple years. We've really put a bigger focus on that this year. Additionally, there's a lot of there's just a lot of nuts and bolts and housekeeping that we try to, because this is a small group of no more than 20 teachers, I believe we have. These include leave replacement teachers, not just new teachers that are hired for tenure track positions, but there's a lot of nuts and bolts questions that they need to be kind of in a smaller, safe environment and know that they can ask that question at any time. So we do have definitely time for those types of questions and interactions.
So forgive me for asking a bad question. Understanding the circumstances dictate some changes in how we deliver, I guess. Do we do any surveys from previous year's orientation, and what have we adjusted other than the topic of teaching virtually to make this orientation the best that it can be? Maybe that's the better way of asking.
That is a good question. We haven't surveyed the teachers, the new teachers in the last 2 years. There's some parts of this that you can imagine are required in terms of technology, understanding the Genesis platform, understanding OnCourse for where they develop their curriculum. So there's sort of the non-negotiables. But what the supervisors have done a really nice job with has been really looking at the topics that are provided each year and making sure that they're timely and that they're meaningful. And so those have shifted, I would say, considerably over the last 2 years as we've gone into more of the Google suite of products and using Google Classroom and all of the Google products to so many digital platforms. So certainly a good idea to survey the new teachers and sort of rate their experience. And I'll have that discussion with supervisors. I think that's a great idea. But I think if you were to look at the last, certainly the last 3 years, that you will see more of a shift towards digital learning and instruction, even before the pandemic.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, yes, Ms. Seitz. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Dr. Gleason. This is just more of a curiosity I think I have. I'm just curious. I'm looking at the 1:30 to 2 o'clock slot, and there's measuring up an art teaching standard. I'm just curious as to the art teaching standards. Did something change with art teaching standards? In other words, I don't see anything there for music, foreign language, anything like that. I'm just curious as to why that one particular subject is kind of teased out.
Sure. We craft the schedule so that it's customized for the teachers. So that is probably Dr. York working with either I think we have a leave replacement teacher, and she's probably working specifically with that teacher. So we try to make it as customized and unique as sometimes it may be a supervisor working with one teacher. And it looks like in the K-8 world, that might be 1 or 2 teachers, while the rest of the K-8 new teachers are learning Measuring Up, which is a digital assessment program. Any other questions on new teacher orientation? Andy?
Yeah, along the lines of what Christine was asking, do we have department leads or chairs at the high school level? Are they involved? I don't know if you have, I see you have family life, but health and PE, that curriculum was just run recently, I know. You're saying that these supervisors are involved, and I think Mr. Adu is one of the people that supervises part of the department at Health and PE. But just along the lines of what Christine was saying, if there are any, are they involved?
The department chairs have not been involved in new teacher orientation during the summer. Part of that is sometimes logistical. They're teachers and they're not working during the summer, and the supervisors do work 20 days during the summer. So it has traditionally been part and parcel of one of their tasks during the summer. And because they work more in a coaching capacity with those teachers, where the department chairs are not so much in coaching capacity, but more the liaison between administration and the teacher. So the conversation's a little bit different at new teacher orientation. Mr. Adu has certainly been involved in new teacher orientation and come over when we've had new health and phys ed teachers come into the district, and all of our administrators are there the first morning, and they have already met, obviously, have recommended for hire their new teachers, and they're also involved with the building tours that happen on the afternoon of day 2, so that they get a little more personalized discussion when they go back to their respective buildings. Okay, folks, the next item is a big item, and it's the topic of virtual school. So, Mr. Krupa, did you want to address anything here, or do you want me to go through my notes?
I think the only thing that I want the public to know and the rest of the board to know is that the team of board members that was there with the school administrators and Dr. Handahan we're asking us very much similar questions that you, the public, have. A lot of this, though, is coming from the Department of Ed and the governor in drips and drabs, and we're forced to respond. This is all unprecedented territory for everybody that's in an education leadership position. I feel very much for all of you in terms of the lack of sleep and stress that you have, but people need to know that because you have been working very hard, and we're going to do the best that we can. One thing too that may not be well known to members of the public or to members of the board is that this new option of virtual for all or for some or hybrid, that the guidance has been that this has to be as good as we can make it in equity and comparable to what would be an in-person type of instruction. And there are options that are beyond the school's resources too that may have to be explored. But I think we all know that you can make believe you're eating cake, and then you can really eat cake. Which do you want to do? So just saying that, we're going to do the best we can with that rigor and that equitability. And please, everybody, when you have a need, reach out. There are good people here that want to help.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. I think you said that very eloquently. This is an emotionally charged time for our families, and families are making decisions for their most prized possession, their child or their children. And we on the administrative end and the Board of Education understand that investment and parents' need for information. And as Mr. Krupa said, we are working really hard while we have a lot of moving pieces to this whole educational landscape. Our ultimate goal as the entire administrative team and the Board of Education is to make this as rigorous, as challenging, as meaningful and authentic, and I think most importantly, engaging for students. And we weren't prepared for that back in March, as were no one in the field of education, certainly not in K-12. And so we certainly did our best. We improved as time went on from March until June. And our goal this year as we come back, whether we are in some form of asynchronous and synchronous instruction or live and virtual, or whether parents are electing for the all remote option, or if at some point the governor forces all schools into remote learning again, we want to make sure that that's not a dip, but that's a level playing field for everyone. And so to that end, what we've done is we surveyed back with parents as early as April of last year, and then also provided surveys back in July of this year to gauge what the district did well and where the district did not meet the expectations of both parents and teachers. And we're building off of that data. So as you know, on July 24th, the governor added supplemental guidance to that road back document that we've been working from. And this new guidance included an additional provision for parents to submit requests for a fully remote instructional option for their child or children. All students in the district are eligible for this option, and they must be provided equitable instruction. That includes supports and related services for students with IEPs, as well as attending to supplemental instruction specific to students who may be English language learners. We put out a preliminary survey on August 3rd that provided us with some data, and that survey closed on August 13th. So that we could begin some form of planning and getting an idea of how many parents would be requesting this remote learning, or what we're calling virtual school. We are now waiting for parents to complete an additional form, which is in Parent Portal. In Genesis Parent Portal, Dr. Handerhan put out a phone reminder today. And again, we urge all parents to go in and complete that form in Parent Portal. Parents should complete that form regardless of whether they're requesting virtual instruction or not. It's a yes/no form, and that's all that they need to complete. It'll take you about 5 seconds to complete that form, but it's very, very important for our planning purposes. As I said, this data will impact a variety of areas. Number one, our staffing needs. How many teachers do we need? How many sections will there be for each grade level, for courses at the secondary level? It impacts the class roster for live instruction on campus and how many students will be in the live classroom and the planning that's involved in that and setting up classrooms. And then it also impacts transportation and the number of students who will or will not be on buses. So parents, we ask that you complete that form no later than Thursday, August 20th, and greatly appreciate your attention to that and quick turnaround time. The data from the August 13th survey that we closed out for that preliminary data revealed the following requests for virtual school. We currently have 205 students in K-5 with requests. Those numbers range anywhere from 23 at one grade level to 46 in another grade level. We have 74 students with virtual school requests in grades 6 through 8. And we have 100 student requests for virtual school in grades 9 through 12. Again, that was from the it closed August 13th, that survey, and we'll finalize those numbers with the waiver or request in Genesis. Dr. Handerhan and I have been meeting with building administrators and analyzing the number of requests at each grade level, working as late as this afternoon and developing plans to coordinate virtual school classes, both at grade levels at the elementary school and course specific, which gets a little more complex at the secondary level, especially at the high school. You've seen the program of studies and what that looks like. So, at the high school level, as I said, particularly the number of requests in courses that may have limited teaching staff in a particular department may make the development or availability of Wall High School staff members limited, and we may have to look at outside virtual providers such as Apex or Eduseer or other virtual online providers. So we're working with the high school team on that now, and they literally have to go through student by student of each of those 100 students to look at the courses that they requested and to see which ones we can merge into virtual classes or which we can't. So that is still in process. There are some parameters, though, that have been developed that are kind of our knowns, which is good to have some knowns at this time. So I included that in your packet. I wanted to just go over some of those bullets. The virtual school in most cases and to the maximum extent possible will be taught by a Wall Township public school teacher where possible. The staffing needs are being assessed and coordinated with the results of the ongoing data from the remote learning request form in Genesis. And once we have that closed out on Thursday, we should be able to finalize which classes can be taught. That will also be dependent upon, as Dr. Handerhan said, the number of teachers who are requesting leaves. And so it's matching supply and demand. In K-5, in our K-5 virtual school, those will be district classes. So specifically what that means is if we have a total of 45 students in grade 2 across the district, those students will be coordinated in potentially 2 sections. So it will not be based by neighborhood school. So they will have students in their virtual class that they may not have met before, which is always a good thing to meet new neighbors. And they may or may not be familiar with the teacher, but our hope is in K-5 that most of those teachers, if not all, will also be Wall Township teachers. It'll depend on the number of sections we have and the number of teachers we have available that will be reporting to work in September. In grades 9 through 12, as I mentioned, some courses may need to be facilitated by an outside provider. That's, again, a little more challenging with staffing availability and the courses being requested. The instructional framework, regardless of how that class is being facilitated, will be a blend of live, or what we call synchronous, as well as sort of self-paced or independent work that we call asynchronous, and that will be in all cases. The length of the virtual school day or the virtual course will be comparable to classes in the traditional setting in campus, and that's something we're required to do to make sure that we're providing an equitable and comparable instructional plan for students who have requested the virtual school. Live lessons will be recorded so that students can review those lessons at any time in the virtual school. We have purchased a variety of digital resources. One of those is Screencastify. It's a district license, and teachers will record their lessons as they teach them in the virtual setting, and students can go back and review those lessons, or if they were not feeling well or the parent wasn't there to support them at that time and the parent needs to go back, those lessons will be live, and those lessons will only be the teacher, not other students in the class. Attendance will be monitored daily. That will be handled obviously through the live interaction of the teacher, who can see who's in his or her class, as well as the completion of work that's in the class for that day or whenever the due dates are for that particular class. And students are expected to complete the daily assignments. One of the things we heard from parents and from teachers that we needed to improve was accountability. And so accountability will be very important. And as Andy, you said before, we want to match the rigor of traditional live on-campus classes with the virtual school. So we're looking at a variety of areas with regard to accountability. Technology will be provided for all students in the virtual school. That includes a device. And if connectivity is needed in the home, we have the availability to do that through hotspots. And we are able to do that. Mr. Lee and the technology department are going to be putting out another technology survey. This one will go out through the phone, since obviously if parents don't have internet or connectivity, they won't be able to receive an email, so that we can continue to identify both any student in the traditional setting as well as in the virtual school setting, what their needs are. Any student who's in virtual school will have all their curricular resources provided by the district for all content areas. Parents who request virtual school, you have in your packet for policy, I believe at first reading, some of the regulations with regard to procedures to request virtual school or remote learning, or requesting to transition back out. So technically these are procedures at this point until we approve policy and adopt policy. But parents who request virtual school after the start of the school year will submit a written request to the principal at least 10 days prior to their enrollment in virtual school. And students who would like to transition from virtual school back to in-person services can request to do so at the midpoint or start of a new marking period in grades K-5, and at the start of a new marking period for students in grades 6 through 12. So there needs some time that we have to be able to transition back and make sure that we are prepared to assign them to a class where there is open enrollment in that class. And so there are a variety of things that we have to make sure are in place. We're also in the midst of developing the structured bell schedule that will be for all grade levels for students in virtual school. And something that we did not do in the spring was have a mandatory bell schedule. Teachers did, I think, a nice job with developing those bell schedules, but they were recommended and not required. But this year in the fall, all of the virtual instruction, whether it's in the live hybrid classes or in virtual school, will have a mandatory bell schedule. And this will promote greater levels of student-teacher interaction, as well as student-to-student interaction. and also increase greater accountability. Today, I met with 9 of our elementary teachers who was really grateful that they met with me via Zoom meeting, and we went through a preliminary framework for K-5. We wanted to make sure, especially at the elementary, that the bell schedule was developmentally appropriate. You know, I certainly have to think about the rising kindergartner who has not yet been in the classroom and who now is the parent may be electing for virtual school. We want to make sure that that virtual school schedule has time for engagement and times for breaks, and have the ability for the student to stay engaged. A kindergartner and many elementary students cannot stay on face-to-face for 4 hours in the virtual environment. So we really put together a very nice preliminary framework. It builds off of what you saw in your packet today, and we have a few tweaks to that. The framework will include, as I said, English language arts, math, science, or social studies. And then there will also be special areas that will likely be recorded, and students will access a required special each day.
Dr. Gleason?
Yes.
Ms. Megan has a question before
Go ahead,
you
Erin.
go on.
Sorry, I figured I'd jump in now while we're discussing the bell schedule. So I'm looking in regards to ELA, and the ELA block seems to be about 30 minutes for reading and writing. I'm kind of thinking, what was your thinking in regards to, like, I understand kindergarten would be, you know, obviously that duration would be a smaller time frame, but as you get up into the grade levels of especially 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, you know, there needs to be a lot more modeling. Some teachers could spend 20 minutes doing a read aloud and like a stop and drop at that point. So I just don't know if, is there any flexibility in regards to, as they move up through that grade, you know, that there's more modeling and direct instruction that's live for the virtual students, you know, just thinking as, you know, in the classroom experience, you know, that would really be like at least a 45-minute chunk of direct instruction there, especially if they're a 3rd grade student, that they're able to sit and observe and interact in that lesson at that point. Is there any way, any flexibility with that? I think parents maybe, you know, especially as in the older grades, in the elementary older grades, are looking more for that live teacher engagement over the virtual.
Absolutely. It's a great question. And as you're aware, we have moved in K2 completely to reading workshop in all grade levels. So in using the units of study for reading, the direct modeling is a shorter mini lesson. Certainly writing is also a part of that. So there's that added to it. And then, as you say, in grades 3 to 5, and definitely in grades 4 to 5, teachers will likely need more time for that. So when we had our meeting today with the teachers, those were some of the tweaks we talked about. Can we have autonomy at grade levels to adjust that schedule so that we have more time for direct instruction or guided practice? And then that other time that you see between what's showing right now is 9:45 to 11 o'clock, maybe that's 10 o'clock to 11. And teachers are then meeting with small groups in continued instruction, reteach, and remediation if necessary, with the rest of small groups of students. But they're going to need absolute flexibility. And I think once they get some rhythm to what works for their class, you'll find that there are teachers that might be doing a little bit longer direct instruction.
Yeah.
So I think teachers need to have the flexibility to do that for sure.
I agree.
Okay. And that would go for math as well, but they have a little bit shorter time for that math lesson.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. In grades 6 to 8, the preliminary framework includes, for virtual school, those students would have live instruction 3 times a week. They would have very much the same as the students who are selecting in-person instruction. They are on campus 2 days a week, and 1 day a week is live virtual. So if a student selects virtual school, they would be with their virtual teacher potentially 2 days a week. And then they would be in the live virtual instruction again on the 3rd day. And just like the rest of the 6th to 8th graders, they would have 2 days of asynchronous instruction in those core areas with independent kind of self-paced activities. So that matches very nicely with what the students are doing on campus. What I think is really very positive also about the middle school schedule is that the non-core areas, if you will, of outside of the tested areas and science and social studies, so health phys ed, world language, and electives, those are being run in a live virtual format for all students. So even if a student selects virtual school, he or she will be integrated with their on-campus classmates for their electives and other special areas. So they get kind of a nice blend of their virtual school classmates as well as the students who are in school, but they'll be continuously in the virtual environment. 9 to 12, again, is still in development. As I said, it's a much bigger animal. And we're worked for quite a while this morning, and the guidance department is working very hard, but we have upwards of 100 or more individual schedules to go through while matching that with staffing availability. So we hope to have the data back from our parent portal form and ready to sort of make those decisions within the next week. But again, the knowns there are that it will be if it's a Wall High School teacher teaching it, which we will, that's the goal in every case possible. And if it's a Wall High School teacher, it'll be, again, a mix of live and virtual instruction. I should say live virtual instruction and asynchronous instruction. And where that is not possible and we need to use an outside provider, that curriculum would be handled by the outside provider in a virtual environment. And in most of those virtual environments, there is it's a New Jersey certified teacher. We've used them before. Eduseer we've used for course acceleration. There's usually a sort of, office hours for the teacher to the student to contact. And we're also considering ways if we have to use Apex or Eduseer to create department liaisons at the school so that the students will have a high school teacher checking in with them regularly throughout the week, even if they're working with one of these outside virtual curriculum. So we'll keep them tied to the teachers. We'll have counselors checking in. So we'll make sure that they are not isolated from the school. Next, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, just because you mentioned the word counselors, and I know that this has been a topic that's on everybody's mind, is the social emotional aspects of and needs of our students and our staff. But speaking directly to the student experience, I see, the special areas there, but guidance isn't mentioned in that. I don't know if that would be a good place to put them so that there's no chance, because there are those kids that will seek help, there are those kids that will not seek help, and then there's everything in between. So I think we need to, have a plan for that. And I'm sure that that's going to be looked at. But I mean, for both the kids that are going to be going to the school and the kids that are at home, either call a good news card I used to do when I was teaching, you send something home, whether they wanted it or not. So the phone calls, the lesson, the whatever, maybe a mindfulness moment for everybody. I've seen other districts doing that. So just something to consider.
Absolutely, really important. And we're meeting this Thursday with all the counselors, school family liaison counselors, school psychologists, our director of special services, guidance director. We have a meeting scheduled to address exactly that, and both from the student aspect as well as the staff aspect. With students, we need to make sure that we are checking in on both our students on campus as well as our students in virtual school. We'll be developing procedures for counselors to have regular check-in with students. We're also looking at ways for teachers to create daily check-ins for their students with simple like do-nows how am I, confidential kind of surveys. How am I doing today? What are my feelings? I'm feeling, giving them a list of sort of feeling words to bring back to the teacher. And if there's anything specific that the teacher can help them with that day. We've used Castle as our one of our primary sources for social emotional supports. And we'll be also looking to survey families to see how families are doing, because they are an extension of our students and part of the school community. Excuse me. And then, as I mentioned, we have to make sure that our staff is providing self-care, and they are also affected by what's happened here since March, some in big ways, some in smaller ways. Our first opening day will be a professional development workshop for our teachers. It opens with self-care for educators. And so we're absolutely putting a big focus on self-care and identifying students and ways that we can customize those social emotional supports. And I'm looking forward to meeting with our counseling team this Thursday. And we also have a parent university that we're trying to line up very quickly with Dr. Greco, that he'll be talking to our families via a Zoom meeting or Google Meet on coming back to school and what that looks like and how you can support your kids. Excuse me. Nick, go ahead. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think that, the term phases has been used, and it's surveying and all that has been talked about. I think it's important that we look at that check-in with some very hard dates as opposed to, well, we're going to do that, because it sometimes doesn't happen. Like, I don't brush my teeth at night, that's TMI, but tonight I will. But in terms of making that really real for the kids, one of the weirdest things about this whole experience is that maybe we all learn to care for each other more. And I'm not trying to be kumbaya, but this is a skill set that could possibly be really actualized, as opposed to being talked about like it has been for over 20 years. So the more we could do to get that going. So I hope you do have some really good discussions with the counselors, maybe even buddy systems where it's age appropriate. Not a bad idea.
Thanks, Andy. And I'll be reporting back to the board in the next, in the upcoming month or two, of where we are with that and what's working and some of the procedures that are in place. Next Tuesday, there will be a special presentation of the district restart and recovery plan. We'll go over the 15 critical areas of operation that are on the plan on the website, and with a little more detail. And certainly, I'm sure the board may have questions. The building level plans will also be posted by August 27th, and there will be links in each of those building plans that parents can view sample classrooms, what it looks like in the school, what a classroom looks like that is socially distanced with 6 feet between students, just all the unknowns that parents don't really know what it looks like yet. So principals and the administrative teams are working on those videos, and those will be, again, up on the website and ready for our school community to view within a couple days after next week's board meeting. Okay, questions?
Dr. Gleason?
Yes.
In regards to the individual schools, will we be able to, and maybe Dr. Handerhan can answer this too, once they get that information together and they have it on website, maybe we could organize a series of like individual meetings for those particular school communities. So maybe a little presentation can be done and possibly a Q&A, because I'm sure, there'll be questions. Questions will be different for Old Mill School compared to Central School or Allenwood. Every school is going to be different, their own little world. So I think, spending a little extra time and just having those those individuals that are interested come to a separate meeting might be a good way for us to go.
Sure. We'll bring that up to the administrators tomorrow during admin council. I think that it'll also be helpful for parents to first view the plans and the video, and then that may answer a lot of their questions, and then we can discuss with administrators, then setting up a scheduled live time for Q&A so that they can answer building level questions. Their building plans really mimic the district plan in terms of the areas, but then they speak directly to what it looks like in my building. Right. So it'll give more clarity with respect to a student's school building.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Stites?
Thank you for that information, Dr. Gleason. I hope this is the right time to ask, and if it's not, you can let me know. In the event that a family chooses the live instruction, but for some reason they are quarantined, told to isolate for 10 days, etc., will those students then automatically flip over to virtual? Or I'm just curious, because I know we have in the policy the 10 days. I don't know if then it's then, I'm just curious as to how that's going to be handled.
Really good question. So in isolated incidents such as that, but you may have them, across the district potentially, we'll probably take those on a case-by-case basis. And I would imagine that the goal would be for that student, if they're going to be out perhaps 10 school days, we're not necessarily going to move them to a virtual class. It would really depend upon the grade level, the teacher's availability. Perhaps if the teacher is able to be paid additional time to provide some additional instruction outside of his or her teaching hours, and then provide during those 10 days, asynchronous learning in Google Classroom. Well, it would really look different at every grade level and really at the secondary level, student by student. But it's a great question because I'm sure we're going to have to address that at some point. Yeah. Thank you.
So, Dr. Gleason, I have a follow-up to that. So if a student, let's say, becomes exposed someplace playing football, let's say, they're out for the 10 days, do those 10 days count as sick days for them?
We're waiting for guidance from the Department of Education. The Department of Education about 6 years ago sort of had a general policy that days absent are days absent. So with this very unique situation, we'll be awaiting guidance from them on how they treat those days.
Because I guess, a student can miss what, 15, 16 days a year?
Well, what's considered excessive absenteeism would be 18 days or 10 days. And so, but again, you don't have the student necessarily absent, because if that student is not ill and can participate in, as I was the example with Mrs. Stites, then they can be counted as there. They wouldn't necessarily be absent. The virtual school has sort of opened up the ability for students to be attending school. So if they're not sick, but they have to quarantine, we can very likely and will likely keep them in instruction, and they would not be counted as absent in that situation.
Absolutely.
It almost sounds like you're the Grinch that's saying possibly no more snow days ever again. But I'm not going to say that out loud. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't think this is just germane to curriculum, so I apologize if I'm opening it up a little bit, and anybody else want to say anything, just cut me off. But I know with regards to special education, there's been a lot of concerns how teacher assistants are going to be used in this plan. Sometimes some of them have full teaching certification. Does that open things up for us? So I
So
I
that's
have
part,
others.
yeah, that's part of our planning meetings with principals, administrative teams today. When I say we go through student by student, that includes our the special education supervisors and director of special services. We have to identify every request and to look specifically at the needs of those children. Students with IEPs, their IEPs have to be reviewed with a fine tooth comb as with regard to the number of minutes of support or settings that they are required to be provided instruction. And then we look over to the supply side and look at which teachers are available, which teachers are needed, number one, and who's available in the current schedule. And then, as Dr. Handerhan said, as part of finance and facilities, this may impact us, as you say, it's not simply germane to curriculum instruction, it's absolutely integral to the conversation around finances and how this might impact the need to hire more teachers. They would not be tenure track teachers, they would be technically long-term substitutes, but this is where we are. That also goes for our ESL students and students with 504s, so any students with special needs.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well,
I-
thank you
I-
for
I-
your time.
I still have another one. I'm
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
So with regards to the high school level and the EduSeer Apex choices, you know, I know you said that, but I think parents need to understand that if you do approve any of that, that's similar to the question that came up about attendance failures and all that, that those will have been approved in advance. So they don't have to worry about not obtaining and keeping up with credit.
Correct. I just want to understand, did you, I'm not sure if I understood your question though, Andy, or comment.
You're going to, if you have students that have to go to EduSeer APEC, they're not going to be courses that are not already approved or,
Correct.
you know.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was a question. We have that up on the FAQs. Again, I remind our school community that the FAQ document, Dr. Handerhan and I update regularly as information becomes available. There's a tab on virtual school option that we've been updating, and the virtual school courses would be already approved. They would be comparable courses to what we already offer, as well as some additional electives. And so those classes absolutely count, and they have to be taught by a New Jersey certified teacher. So those are all legitimate courses. And again, we have to look at really where we are there. I think that we're looking, again, we have to really coordinate supply and demand at this point and have the data back. And we're really also looking at our rising ninth graders as a transition group that how can we try, especially in ninth grade, because they are a transition, and it's always difficult, you know, when you have a child of your own that comes into ninth grade, that's a transition even in normal times. And so if they're going to be in virtual school, we want to try to the greatest extent possible, have them connected to a Wall Township or Wall High School teacher. But I think that the idea of a teacher liaison for those students that may be taking classes with an outside provider is really a valuable step in keeping them connected to the school community, and then also having counselors check in as well.
So now here's another one that's gonna, I hope, light things up. Now, but the thing that you're talking about, there's been some pushback from NJEA about how are we gonna get this all done. I know that our teachers are not dissimilar and that they have the same concerns. And as it relates to starting date and parents, I know I'm one too. So, you know, you're concerned about when your kids are going to go back to school, if they do go back to school. Are we on track? Do you feel like we, you know, this is a board here. Is there anything we can, you know,
well,
do?
Let's just say this, Andy, the runway is getting shorter and shorter every day. But we're on the runway, and we are all working, meaning every administrator in this district is putting in long hours right now because the clock is ticking. And so we know what needs to get done. And our goal is every day we look at where we are, hoping that the targets don't move a lot from the state, from the governor, and we can continue to move, that the health data stays relatively stable. So every day is a new day of surprises, but our hope is we put a lot of work into this, and our hope is that we are going to open in phase 1 according to schedule as we speak right now. That's all I can tell you is as we speak right now.
Yeah, I don't mean to put any ado, but actually I've been saying that I was kind of thinking about taking pressure off more or less, although.
I hear that, thank you.
Yeah, so the ideas that you have, I think, are great ones. You've mentioned that there'll be presentations about that too. I wouldn't think that pictures wouldn't be a bad idea either. And if your principals are doing that, high principals, you're going to be, maybe, there's parents that are like me, the picture is 1,000 words. If you can integrate that, it doesn't have to be everybody's classroom, but certainly if I can see something, because we're not able to go into the school prior to, that does a lot to alleviate people's questions and
exactly.
And
every school's building plan, when that's put up within the 2 days after the board meeting next week, every school plan will have a link to a video that will include either a sort of voiceover video or a presentation which includes pictures of sample classrooms, and that kind of illustrates some of the parts of their plan visually.
Yeah, and Dr. Handahan, you mentioned about the plexiglass. So another thing that's been, over and over and over again from the public is PPE. So yes. I think you said something about it, but.
I did. We absolutely have PPE on site. We have the masks. We have the for special circumstances and special needs. We have the masks with the clear covering over the mouth so that you can see the lips move. We have certainly we have the latex gloves. We have items that we started ordering them prior to my arrival. So we do have things on site, and of course we're looking beyond September, beyond October. So we're looking at our own supplies and anticipating our needs moving forward. And there's a lot of ordering. We are ready as far as supplies, though, to open in September. So we're in good shape, and there are a lot of moving parts, but with PPE, we're good.
Well, I just want to thank you both and the board, my fellow board members, for letting me just pummel you just there with all those questions.
Thanks, Andy. I think I'm all talked out, Mr. Agnusio.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely, Mr.
I'm a numbers person, so I'll just ask for aggregates. Do we have a snapshot of the survey in Genesis yet? Is it like a live number?
I don't have that number readily available. It's as of today, the numbers were still not where the August 3rd survey was, the numbers I gave you tonight, which is why Dr. Handerham put out that gentle reminder via phone call today so that we can make sure if the numbers are matching so we can start to reconcile these lists.
From an aggregate percentage of in-person versus virtual, what are we looking at? District-wide?
Based upon the survey results, we were at 19%, I believe. Dr. Handerham, was that what our final number was?
Initially, that was our first number with the initial survey that we sent out. But I believe we were at 16.1, but that is not consistent across the grade levels. So
I can give you that. Hang on. Again, this was, you're very good, Dr. Hannard. 16.2% was when we closed that survey. And again, that was anywhere from 7.5% at, you know, some of the elementaries up to 9.3 and lower numbers. I think that the data makes sense. We have, in some cases, lower numbers at the younger elementary as a percentage of K1 and 2. And that tracks the data that we heard from parents that said it's really difficult to provide virtual instruction when the parent has to be a big part of that with a kindergarten, first grade, and even a second grade student. A kindergartner and first grader is not able to readily get on a computer and be able to follow the bell schedule. And they need a lot of guidance and dependence on parents. So I think in some cases, you know, we've had parents certainly request virtual instruction. We have 25 kindergarten student requests across the district and about 46 first grade and about 39 second grade. Again, those are all from the August 3rd survey. As a percentage of the grade level, we have approximately 250 students in a grade level. So 10% roughly. So it's less, as you said, than that 16.2% number. That's the aggregate.
Okay, one last question. When it comes to reasonable accommodations made within the policy, how many do we have? And even same thing, I don't need an exact number, as a percentage of teaching staff per se. Has there been a large amount?
Are you speaking to staff?
Staff and
Yes.
accommodations.
Yes. Yeah.
We're working through that now, certainly more than any other year. And we're doing our best. We're doing our best to accommodate our staff as much as we physically can.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it takes time to work through all of them because it's a process.
It's a
but
lot.
Do we know how many have been at least initially filed, maybe not gone through yet?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, Adam, and we're actually still in flux because people are considering options when they have, if they've expressed interest and looking at different various options. And of course, our goal is to accommodate as much as possible while they're in the workplace so that they will be able to come to work. So we do have some requests because of childcare reasons. I do not have those numbers in front of me, however.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gleason. So in the intermediate school, typically kids that go to speech and PT, they're pulled out of their specials. So if the specials aren't going to take place, how are you going to work that into the schedule?
With regard to virtual school, Ralph?
Well, the students that are in the building, so students that go for speech and things like that, is that going to be more or less a standalone type class where they wouldn't be pulled from a special?
Okay, so with regard to related services that have to be provided for students, in the live class, those will be scheduled as they would just an early dismissal day. And then in virtual school, we are required to provide those. That'll be typically a telemedicine where they will provide those virtually via Zoom or another secure platform. So we are required to provide all of those services. Did I answer that question? I'm not sure if I understood it correctly.
So, but during a typical school day, if a student's in school, wouldn't maybe if the class is going to art, wouldn't that be when they would go to possibly speech, or is that just a separate thing? No,
not necessarily. It would really depend upon the schedule, and we try when we're, pulling students for services. Ideally, we have they're not missing the same thing all the time. That's a scheduling piece, but that's not necessarily the case. So with regard to specials in the live classroom, all specials will be pushing in at the elementary level. We're hoping, we're not sure if we can do it, but we're hoping to try to maintain the art room because there's so many supplies and cleanup that goes with that. So if we can hold that space, we're going to try to do that, but that's going to depend on that we can get everybody socially distanced in the classroom and not have to use that space.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I thank you, Dr. Gleason.
You're very welcome.
So, okay, before we move on to public comment, there was something that I wanted to read early on, but because we were running late to get in, I wanted to get the meeting started. Unfortunately, this past week, 2 longtime Wall Township School employees passed away. So I'd like to recognize Bernadette Daly. She's been an employee in the district since 1995. She was a senior bus driver who had a great sense of humor. Bernadette loved driving the bus for the district and enjoyed being around the children. She will be missed deeply, and she leaves behind 2 daughters. The second employee was Rosemary Krill. She's been an employee in the district since 2002. She was a food service worker in the high school. She was fondly known around the department as a gypsy because she worked in all our schools at one time or another. She enjoyed the company of her co-workers and spent many hours baking and crafting. She will never be forgotten, and she leaves behind a daughter and 2 step-grandchildren. So on behalf of the Board of Education and our whole Wall Township community, we send our condolences to the family and hope they find peace at this time. With that, yes.
Could you just, maybe mention, if not a committee report, but that Dr. Handahan, yourself, and I had the Township and Board of Ed Liaison Committee, and I just want to commend Dr. Handahan for the relationship she's building with them. And, you did a really nice job explaining and, what you're dealing with and answering their questions. And, we were looking at other things besides COVID a while.
Something productive.
Yeah, with, possible paving projects coming forward, but, obviously that's going to be in a back burner until we get our stuff going with this other stuff. But I just wanted to acknowledge that for the public's benefit. Yeah. And also, to acknowledge our counterparts, if you're out there, the business manager and the 2 reps that were there. It was, it's important that people know we're trying to have that relationship and build it.
Thank you, Mr. Krupa. Yes, it's important. We met with the business administrator, Jeff Bertrand, Committeeman Tim Farrell, who's actually a former Board of Education member, which is a great ally to have there, and Committeeman Kevin Orander. And it looks like one of the things they did discuss that could possibly move forward was paving a walkway in front of the intermediate school that would connect the parking lot to the corner, so you could use the crosswalk to go across the street to the municipal complex. Because on the municipal complex side, they plan on extending their walkway that goes around the whole complex to the street. So it makes it a much safer way for people to walk because a lot of times they use the intermediate school, especially for sporting events over there when there's not enough parking. They use it for overflow. And, sometimes walking through the grass when it's wet is not pleasant. So that's something that they're looking at helping us with, which is a good thing for us. Let me just ask Mr. Wondrak, because he's been muted, and I just want to make sure he's not forgotten, because I'm not sure how it works with the phone, if he can unmute himself or not. Try. Mr. Wondrak? Yep. Oh,
yeah,
you
how's
can
that?
Perfect. Did you have any questions, comments?
No, I've been listening. this thing keeps coming on. Unmute yourself, unmute yourself.
Oh, that,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know why.
That was me just trying to make sure that I could do it, because sometimes it takes several times pressing unmute for it to actually unmute. So I didn't know if you could control that. But I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure you're all, okay, you're good. Thank you.
I'm fine.
Okay, thanks, Ken. All right, so at this time, we will open up for public comment on any school district issues. As per policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes. Trying to. There we go. Ms.
Hi,
Cross?
yes. Hi, this is Betsy Cross. It's 9:53 p.m. You know, it's too bad that you don't have separate agenda items for reopening school, Mercury in the district, you know, because this is really getting old to have people stay on until 9:53 at night. You've got to come up with a better way. So, you know, Mr. Adonisio, this would be your job. You're supposed to work on the agenda with the superintendent. I'm disappointed in the way, you know, I'm seeing not enough information coming out on the high school. Seems like every question I send into the board, nothing gets answered. None of my questions have been answered, I think, since March. It just goes on and on. It's so disingenuous to have Mr. Gartz, chair of FNF, tell us that now what's happening at Central School, you promise to be clear and consistent with communication. It's what we plan to do. And then have Mr. Smythe type that in the minutes like it's really going to happen. We know it's never going to happen because it didn't happen on the Central School trailer. So why is it going to happen here? So completely disingenuous. And then Erin, you mentioned complete transparency. I just don't believe it. What else? Just completely disappointed with the high school. The Mercury. So it seems like you've been hiding the issues with the Mercury, and now you have somebody come on tonight and he doesn't even tell us exactly what he's doing. So if you could go over tonight exactly what's happened now with the Mercury. I did send in a question. How in the world did we get a Mercury floor down in 2011? And I asked you, did you put a wood floor over a Mercury floor? Big problems. Mr. Nasser, you know, you always mention that you're going to be doing stuff, and then you never actually finish. So you did the same thing on the trailers, which is one problem after the next. And now we have this problem with Mercury. I do see in July of 2011, I don't know if we actually really got bids or we just got one bid, but it was for $181,000 to fix the gym floor and to do the bleachers. Then of course we end up overpaying for $211,000, and we don't see any type of adjustment anywhere that's board approved. Now we find out we've got problems, and it seems like it's all being hidden. So I really have no comfort level sending my child to the high school because you've been hiding everything to do with the Mercury. I bring it up at meetings, and Mr. Smythe does not write it down in the minutes. So I see him looking around, scratching his head. It's disturbing. And it's disturbing. And I think the only reason you looked at the Mercury is because now you're looking to use the gym as classrooms. Otherwise, that Mercury would have sat in there at 8 times the level, and you would have continued to keep staff and students in danger. It's the same old, same old. Every time there's something new. The trailers, lead paint at West Belmar. Now we got Mercury. Now we got a pipe burst at Central, and it goes on and on and on. Where is Mr. Cram's report on the trailers? There's no update. The nonsense that you're going to be transparent and accountable, Mr. Adonisio, it's nowhere near. In an executive session on June 23rd, 2020, Mr. Cramp updated the board concerning his report on the Central School trailers. I have no idea why that would be discussed in executive session. So it must have fallen under litigation, contract matters, client attorney privilege, or personnel. It's not a topic for executive session. And nowhere does it say he's working on his draft report that he's going to give you. What's really disturbing is that Mr. Smythe waited to give the documents until after he demoed the trailers, and he stood there and watched. Nothing is more disturbing than how this has been handled from the purchase to the demo. So it'll all come out. I am sure of it. So don't throw out any more documents than you already have, Mr. Smythe and Mr. Nasser. The timeline is taking forever. And I know, this timeline should have been done back in September, and you've been just
Your 5 minutes are up.
There you go.
So,
And with that, I just would like to say a couple things. Everything that was just said was absolutely false. Questions have been answered. Hiding, there's been no hiding of anything at all. As soon as we received the info on the gym floors, we immediately notified the union and we notified public. And saying that levels were 8 times higher, completely wrong about the levels. And there was a whole discussion about Mercury this evening. So, please just, if you want to state facts and throw insults out, please just have the real facts.
Mr. Anisio?
Yes, Mr. Gartz.
Yeah, I would follow up your comments just to be clear that 66% of this Board of Education was not around during the trailer situation. So it's important to know that we are not following the same policies and procedures, and clarity and consistent communication has been what we're doing. If one individual doesn't get the information she wants, when she wants it, as she wants it, in the form that she wants it, at the day and time and minute that she wants it, that's not our concern. We're following the rules, we're following the law. I encourage her to send everything to the Department of Justice, the FBI, Secret Service, and everyone else who's going to investigate us, and I hope it does come out. If there was violations 8, 10, 12 years ago, that's not what this board is focused on. I've said it again and again, but if there were violations, let somebody else investigate it. This board is not concerned about what went on in 2007 and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph, if I could jump in as well.
Yes.
Usually, we spend 5 minutes listening to Betsy go off, and like I said, it's getting old because there was a time when Betsy provided, I thought, by bringing up things that I thought really had merit, and it kept everybody on their toes. And I believe sometimes there's that she believes what she thinks, but to say here tonight that she hasn't had any questions answered since March is just so patently false that it's just, I don't even know how she stands up and says that. I mean, we could give you the number of emails that we get from Ms. Cross on a daily basis that are just random questions, where most of them are accusations or statements of opinion rather than questions. She's been given information.
Joe, you there? You kind of froze up.
9 board members on here. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Board members on here that are trying to work through all these important issues of our kids, putting them, educate them. The Mercury in the school is another example. We've done everything we possibly could. We went out so far as to say, hey, this is a big issue. Let's get in front of it by bringing in an expert, the state expert on Mercury. We just went out and said, we need your help. You need to tell us, what are we doing? What do the numbers mean? How could, what's going on here? Like, I don't know what more we can do. Like under Ms. Cross's theory, every board member since 2007 has been just a lying sheet, whether it was, you know, back in, you know, the 20, 30 people that have been on the board in that period of time. We all must be in some cabal to just screw the residents of Wall Township. If you listen to Ms. Cross, it's just, I mean, I'm hoping that the 56 people that are attending this meeting tonight that are listening understand that we are doing the best we can. Again, we are not focused on whether or not the 2007 purchase had a seal of this or that. That's been looked at. This county's looked at it. Ms. Cross sends us dozens and dozens of emails a week. If we stopped and answered every one of her questions multiple times, we would get nothing else done. The administration has other things to do. We answer the Oprah requests that we're required to by law, but regular requests, just emails. I mean, it's getting to the point where, like I said, it's hard to be a public servant now when you're vilified for just doing what you need to, you know, what we're trying to do. As Mr. Gard said, I encourage Betsy to reach out to all these agencies. As far as I'm concerned, 2 or 3 weeks ago, she got letters back from the agencies telling them, hey, please take us off your list. Stop emailing us. So Betsy, if you want to keep going to all these different agencies, please do. We encourage you to do it. We would like you to do that because we would like nothing better than somebody to come in, do an investigation to make sure that we're following all the rules, and then we can put it to bed forever. Not by you, you'll continue to do it, but hopefully the other 50 some people that are listening understand that there's no validity to your points. It's really just, it's getting to be an issue. But again, you have the right to do it. I encourage you to keep being involved. And again, like I said, you'll come up with some good ones here and there. But most of the time, Betsy, you're just barking up the wrong tree. And I hope you become part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Smythe.
since we're correcting information, I'll take it one step further with regard to the comments on the installation of the gym floor back in 2011 with the contractor Rampart Construction. The original contract was in the amount of the $181,800. That was from a bid received from the vendor. It was awarded by the board at a public meeting. During the construction, there were things that were identified that required change orders for the work that was being completed. It was not increased the $29,000 or a total payment of $211,000 as stated by Ms. Cross. There were change orders in a little bit over $18,000, $18,944. That was for 5 change orders, and those 5 change orders were approved at a public Board of Education meeting at the time back in 2011 when the work was ongoing. This information with regard to the count analysis for Rampart Construction for the project was all provided. However, the documents are being misread, and that's where I believe the number of 211,000 is being determined by Ms. Cross when the total payments to the contractor were in the amount of just over $200,000. But any change was approved by the Board of Education at a public meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Smythe. Trying to unmute Mrs. Opergard. Oh, there we go. Ms. Opergard?
Hi, how are you?
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Adnizio. I'm speaking tonight as the WTA Health and Safety Chairperson. As you know, there are several comments I need to make and concerns. I was happily surprised to see Dr. Lynch introduced this evening. The WTA Health and Safety Committee is looking forward to working together with the board and continuing that discussion along with our representative from NJWEC. We would like to be a part of all those discussions if possible. As you know, the WTA asked for further testing at the Wall High School gym under increased temperatures, without ventilation on, benchmarked rooms, and so forth. We did get the report from Partners Engineering. Some of those requests were met, but there were some that we still feel were not met to what we had requested. There's most importantly, the standard being used is only that New Jersey standard, and we would appreciate that more stringent standard being used instead. We're not comfortable with those results. We're looking forward to more information and screening as soon as possible, but I am happy to hear that that gym will not be used until we can be confident that the mercury level in there is safe and that our children and our staff are safe. So thank you for that. So there are only 10 school days, if I'm counting right, 10 days left till school, if I'm counting right. And my questions are many in basis of the time frame. The first was a little bit of a comment tonight that we're working through the accommodations that are being requested by the teachers and how they're being met. And how and when are these teachers going to be notified? It's a big switch from being a classroom teacher to a virtual teacher or vice versa, you know, so to speak. So that's a concern of mine. Virtual instructors are needed, as was spoken about tonight, for every grade in elementary plus special education, plus every elementary every subject at the high school and the intermediate school, plus special education, plus whatever's necessary at the primary school if anybody there is going virtual, plus speech and any services and how they're going to be. How do you plan to hire these people and get board approval by next week, as you said, and those new teachers be a part of that new teacher orientation, which starts next Wednesday? That seems really a humongous problem. And again, there are 10 days. The binding survey needs to be completed by Thursday. You're not going to have real numbers until then, and maybe not even then. I know that's what you want them, but you know, I've been here a really long time, and historically, those deadlines sometimes get a little gray. Again, we only have 10 days. So to find those numbers and how many teachers you need and hire them all by Tuesday. I would like to commend the building principals for trying to make it work in all of the elementary schools. That is the safest way for all of us. But we, as the WTA, in our walkthroughs have identified major problems with social distancing at West Belmar, at Allenwood School, and at Central School. I'm personally going to primary tomorrow with Mrs. Duffy. I'm looking forward to that. We're not ready. We're not ready. There are really major concerns. PPE was discussed tonight. Last I heard from our nurses on the WTA, their PPE orders have not even arrived. The nurses' special orders, not the district orders. So that really needs to be made priority, I would think. And in the amount of PPE that I've heard, you don't really have enough for a very long time frame. You know, you may have enough for a couple days or a couple weeks, but that has to be something that needs to be continually replenished, like paper towels and toilet paper. You can't possibly know what we're going to need until we see how many we're going to use on a daily basis. As a staff member, I have 6 hours of mandatory safe schools training to do. But I have heard of no plans for training on cleaning protocols by teachers and staff, and for virtual learning training of any substance. I talked to Dr. Gleason today, and I told her at one point in our meeting today, my head was going to explode. You talk about all these new virtual platforms. I'm old school. It's a huge learning curve, and I'm trying to make it work for special ed kids. I don't think we're going to have enough time. I don't think you have enough professional development time planned in before students are supposed to arrive. Buses, we really have not heard very much about how we're going to ensure the safety of those students and those drivers and those paras that are on those buses and vans, how we're going to determine what that distance is, what square footage is being determined. In the same vein, private transportation is going to be a nightmare. Pick up and drop off of the parents that have opted out of busing. There's not enough room to not impede the traffic in the streets in front of those schools. Wall Township Police, if they're not already part of this conversation, they need to be put on tomorrow. You need to find out who their traffic safety officer is. And that's what they do. That's their specialty. That's a nightmare. As somebody who spent many years of private transportation duty, I cannot imagine how that's going to work. My next item is the number 510. 510 is the number of students at Central School. Now, I understand some of them are going to be going virtual, but we were bursting at the seams pre-COVID Now we're expected to socially distance. After the trailers were closed, we were even more crowded. And I know that the board was told that every teacher had their space, but every teacher didn't have their space. A lot of teachers had desks in art rooms, in library corners and nooks. And now we added a flood to that. We added a construction project that is not allowing these custodians to get in there and set our classes up and allow the teachers then to get in. Why are we rushing this is my point. So as a board, you have to take action. That's your job. You have to ask the questions. And tonight, you need to make sure that you are ensuring our safety and the safety, more importantly, of the students in Wall Township. In my opinion, you have three options. You may agree or disagree. Number one is to go completely virtual for a couple weeks, maybe, to ensure safety measures are put in place, and don't rush it. Don't Band-Aid it. We finally are making progress to stop the Band-Aid fixes in Wall Township. You can do better. Or go hybrid in the elementary school, at least to cut down on the amount of kids that we have in our building, especially Central School, that is bursting. If intermediate school and high school can go hybrid, there's no reason we can't do it efficiently in elementary schools. And the third option, in my opinion, is delay the opening of school altogether. Some districts in the state have done that, move it back a couple weeks. As a chairperson of health and safety, it is my opinion that it is not safe for our members, and let alone for our students. Do not go back full force until it is safe for everybody. And I thank you for your time. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. So thank you, Mr. Adnesio, and the rest of the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Oberhart. Have a good evening. Go to Ms. Rosselli?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Oh, it's clear tonight. I hit the jackpot. Wonderful. I got a new computer.
Yes. Very- Sounds
Okay.
good.
So I'm back. Here I am. So I was underwater last time. I'm not going to reread. I rewrote. Some things have happened in the last 2 weeks. So here I am, Janine Rosselli, kindergarten teacher of Central. Very proud. I'm on the WTEA Health and Safety Rep for Central School. I'm starting my 23rd year. I'd like to reiterate that I believe elementary should start following the hybrid model as the Wall Intermediate and Wall High School. You all know where I stand on that. Also, in light of the recent pipe issue and flooding issue at Central, I believe some would agree that delaying school will remedy this issue. And of course it would. However, delaying start dates does not address the true issue. I don't want that issue to cloud the full capacity 510 student, 85 adult issue at hand, which I'd like to bring to the board's attention again. Central, as you know, is the largest in the district. And by default, something happens with us every August. So here's 23 years later, here's August. We get through it all. We get through the trailers. We get through ABC News. We get through it. This is different. So Central is the largest school in the district. Even if the proposed 16.2% of families chose the virtual option, please take the time to seriously look with your own eyes, measure and dissect Central for a full capacity start. I think you would be astonished. I'd like to end with this. The people that are speaking on behalf of the hybrid virtual method tonight are not teachers that are, quote, scared to work. You know us, you know we're incredibly hardworking, student-centered teachers. But, you know, in kindergarten, I can speak for removing small group instruction, removing toys, removing centers, removing blocks, removing lots of things that are not going to be a traditional kindergarten setting anymore. So we're at desks, which pains me, but is necessary. I think it can be completely handled so much better if we had half the amount of children and bring back some of those things that make their kindergarten experience kindergarten and not sitting at the desk all day. I humbly ask the Board of Education as my employer to seriously take my statement seriously tonight and ensure my safety. As always, you know, personally, I thank you for your time and dedication to making Wall the best it can be. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rosselli. Ms. Marr?
Good evening. My name is Gail Marr. I am the sleepy but president of the Wall Township Education Association. As part of the WTEA's commitment to help reopening the schools safely, we have completed tours at 5 of the 7 schools. We concentrated on HVAC issues, room capacities, and the status of isolation rooms. With all of that being said, the secondary schools, the intermediate school and the high school, we feel very confident is ready to open. They can socially distance. They do not have insurmountable HVAC issues, and their isolation rooms are set up for distancing healthy and symptomatic students. Old Mill also will be ready to open, and we will also have the opportunity to see where they would be outside of the building, being able to take mask breaks. And there was a great number of classes that could go there and still socially distance. When we visited Allenwood, the results were not the same. When we removed desks to ensure students are seated at least 6 feet apart, and considering the flow of student traffic around the room, there were still more students assigned to rooms than desks were allowed. The isolation room is also not ideal at this time at Allenwood, and the head nurses do know about that, and they are trying to fix that situation. Today we visited West Belmar, and the rooms will be socially distanced until the second teacher comes in, the paraprofessional comes in, and the students come in that push into the class from other areas. So there are a number of rooms that when all of those people are in the room, they are no longer socially distanced. Primary is tomorrow. Although we cannot comment on the social distancing aspect or the recirculated air, there is no place for isolating symptomatic students at the primary school currently, and it has been reviewed by the nurses. For Central, we have not gotten in yet because of the flood. We did have a tour date to get in, but we are confident that I have a different number than Chrissy, that 531 students will not be able to socially distance in that building. On the agenda tonight, we've identified about 30 questions we would like answers to, or statements that we would like to be less vague to consider the plan, one that allows the district to reopen safely. We'll provide those to Dr. Gleason tomorrow, and I'm sure we will get those answers. An email was sent today to Dr. Handerhan and a number of the board members, and I would just like to read it. The following significant items are pending, with an additional 25 protocols previously requested on August 10th, but not on the Board of Ed agenda this evening. With the Central School flood and all that is still pending, the WTEA is astonished that a new start date or a start virtual date has not been recommended. There is only 10 school days before the in-service, and the entire district has not heard from central office since the announcement that was 22 days ago on the district schedule. It is extremely unfair to the members to be kept in the dark on decisions being made during this stressful time. And I listed the 25 protocol items that we still await. With a robocall going out to parents today, giving them until August 20th to decide on virtual, this then gives the district 8 days to get it all together. Too much stress with too little time to get all of those loose ends tied up is a very dangerous land we may be entering. The WTEA requests that the superintendent and the board make one of 3 decisions. Number 1, change the start date of school to at least September 21st. And we should probably start on a Monday with the way we have red, blue, AB, AB. If that is not an acceptable choice, then we should start school Monday, September 14th, for about 2 weeks, where we could have virtual, but not in person. If that is not acceptable, then at least the elementary schools should be changed to a hybrid model. With the RT now being over 1, it is not the time to bring 531 students in Central and 407 students at Allenwood in when socially distancing is not a well thought out plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, JF Boyle.
Hi, hi Ralph, thank you. My name is Jim Boyle. I'm from Orchard Crest. I just want to thank all of you again for all your time and efforts. These are unprecedented times, and this is a tireless sacrifice that you guys have been making for months, and we do recognize that. This will be our 22nd consecutive year with children in the district at Wall. We're strong supporters of quality education, as all of our students have gone through all levels of the public school and all have had various levels of success. Dr. Handerhan and Dr. Gleason, we have specific concerns about the lack of information surrounding the 100% virtual school option for the kids in the high school. Now, as we heard from Mrs. Marr and Mrs. Oppegard, they feel that a August 20th decision date is too late for parents to choose virtual. We're on the other end of it saying it may be too soon. It's a binding decision, but there's really not a lot of information out there. Before, choosing 100% virtual was pretty straightforward. We were worried about the health and safety, but we felt if there was virtual, they would be able to participate in their in classroom with their current teachers as they did last year. But that's changed over the past couple of weeks. And we put together a list of questions for our guidance counselor and for our school regarding our child. 7 different questions, none of which could be answered. And I could sense the frustration in our own administration not knowing the answers. Simple questions like, in an 8-class schedule, which classes in the schedule are going to be taught by a virtual teacher in the same classroom that he had if he had stayed in school? Which classes are going to be taught by a Wall Township teacher in a different virtual setting? Which classes are going to be outsourced to, say, EduSiri or to Apex? And what about his electives? If electives cannot be handled in school, will they be handled by EduSiri or Apex? In our short research, they are not offered. In our 5 years of experience with EduSiri, that self-paced online learning, there's nothing live about that. The quality of that is far from live instruction. We learned tonight that the intermediate school has been able to find a solution where they can allow students to participate in the in-classroom classes while still being virtual. It's odd to understand why the high school can't commit to that when it is probably as simple as hooking up Google Meet, maybe join.me, or a camera in the classroom. It's only 2 days a week where a child would be sitting at home watching that. So to not be able to commit to that the student will be part of their homeschooled teachers is somewhat odd. Questions that could not be answered, but what about our child participates in band? How is that going to be accomplished? And if his electives are not offered, is he going to be forced to drop classes? He has some honors classes. All of those questions that we asked were responded with, we just don't know. We haven't been told yet. Yet in 2 days, we're supposed to make a binding decision that could come back and we could be told, well, of the 8 classes that your child is taking, 2 of them he has to drop, 3 of them he's going to be taking online with self-paced, and 1 of them will be with his classroom teacher. That seems like a stretch. I think there should be a way to be able to commit at least to what some of those answers are. So we as parents can at least make a decision so we know whether it is taking a risk to go completely virtual, because that risk is quality of education and then also just the continuity when they do come back to class. We now learned no longer is it a 4-week virtual instruction as was first talked about in phase 1. Now it's the entire marking period. You have to wait to the end of the marking period. And now when we come back, we are not being given an answer. Will they go back to their original teachers? We don't know. We don't know who will they go back to. We're not sure. So there's a lot of unknowns that the administration can't answer for us. We don't have any information to make decisions as parents. So our request to you, Dr. Handerhan, is to change that deadline so parents have more time to get just basic facts, at least on the high school level, about how to make those decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Tony?
Hi, Tony Knopel. I know this was mentioned by Mrs. Opelgard and Ms. Rosselli, but I just wanted to know why the elementary schools aren't going hybrid like the high school and the intermediate school. I filled out the survey and 3 of my older children will be doing the hybrid, but my younger child in school will be doing full virtual. I feel like we are being forced to keep our younger children home since it's full capacity 5 days a week, and a lot of us do not feel safe with doing this option. My next question is, based on the safety and health guidelines that have been set by the state of New Jersey, what specific measures will be taken for Central School? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Mrs. Gill?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for taking questions. I would have to reiterate a lot of Jim Boyle's concerns, and I feel like there's many parents in the district that do have their own nuances and some, intricacies at the high school level. So to see more details to follow, that was a little disappointing. Like, we don't even know what the blocks are going to be as far as how much time is there for the transition into school, out of school. Like, there's literally no information for the high school. So that's frustrating. To Dr. Gleason's point, the high school schedule is more complex. So what will the district do with a class like multivariable calc or the engineering capstone that aren't offered in other platforms? I know that you said that students that are in quarantine may have to, obviously they have to stay home, but maybe they can still participate in the classroom in one way or another because they're not technically sick. They're very capable, just not allowed to be in school. So a simple solution could be even a student just FaceTiming their friend so that their classmate or peer could be present for instruction from their normal classroom teacher. But I don't know if there's privacy rules against that. That might be something to consider. My fingers are obviously crossed, Dr. Handerhan, that we're going to have the SAT Saturday. That's only a couple days away, so hopefully we're good with that. And then I know that this abbreviated schedule was originally planned for September. I don't know if there's been any guidance that I've missed on when we're hoping to transition to a more in-school setting where it's more than 2 half-days for high school. I know that many students are eager to get back. And then when the South Gym issues are resolved, if they're going to be resolved, I don't know what the process is going with that, but I don't know if the board realizes many students actually eat their lunch in that South Gym because the cafeteria is just very small for the population. So that's going to be something that's going to need to be considered for the future. Like, where are these kids going to eat lunch when you do get back full day? And then very importantly, how is the district supporting teachers? Because I've asked some questions of various teachers and their answer is, we really don't know. We don't have a lot of guidance. So specifically several weeks ago, I asked some questions about the engineering academy, and a cohort of other parents decided to meet to try to come up with some creative ideas on how we could make the most of these scenarios. And there's still many questions we have, but teachers are hesitant to answer because they don't know what to say exactly, and they don't really know what to do. So a consideration would be maybe an engineering advisory group that would include students, teachers, parents, and administrators, so we can maybe try and figure this out together as a group. So, and then, oh, my only other question, if a student has a fever and they can't go to school, but they don't have COVID, do they require a COVID test? Do they have to stay home for 10 days? Like, what's going to happen if a kid just wakes up one morning and isn't feeling well, but it's not COVID? Thank you.
Thank you. Tom? Tom?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. My name is Tom Rack. I spoke to you last meeting. Thank you again for all of the work that you guys are putting in. I do appreciate and understand the effort and the fact that you are constantly having to deal with changing guidelines, changing data, changing information, and having to deal with a lot of this on the fly. That being said, as a parent coming into this school district, I'm again a little frustrated, similar to Jim, similar to some of the other customers, parents, in the situation that I'm being expected to make a decision on whether I'm going to go live versus virtual with my son. That's binding in 2 days when I'm not going to have details or Q&A or a demonstration on how my kid's school is going to be executing on all of these items. It's further frustrating when I hear things specific about the school, Allenwood, that my child is going to be going to from experts that are citing the fact that social distancing just isn't going to be possible right now. I'm worried about those things. Last meeting, I asked for specific details about some of the studies and the medical journals and the medical expertise that were cited and referenced in some of the discussions. And I see on the FAQ that at least 3 of them were put up, and in evaluation of them and looking at them, I see one of them is a study on young adults aged 18 to 25 on the impact of smoking on COVID, which doesn't really apply to school-age students in the United States. I see another one who I quote from their conclusion that young children may show higher attack rates when the school closure ends, contributing to the community transmission of COVID-19. That's from one of the studies that you cited. And the last one is from a set of data where it specifically calls out that this is not applicable to US data since that wasn't available. And I don't know, I have to lean back on my first point. I'm struggling with the decision to send my child to school knowing that this is his formative years. These are the things that you dream about when you have a kid, sending them to school and that first day of school and going to kindergarten. And I can't make that decision until I know how you guys are going to take care of my son. And asking me to commit to whether or not I'm going to send him into your care or keep him home in my own care virtually without knowing all of the details and being able to ask the questions and get the answers right away, I don't think is fair to me as a parent. And I understand the situation you're in where you need that data to be able to plan. I totally get that, but there needs to be some give and take here for that reason. So again, I thank you for all of the time. I thank you for the effort. I know that you guys are doing the best you can with what you have.
Thank you. Ms. Embaum?
Hi, everybody. Erin Emban, principal of Wall Intermediate School. Thank you for everybody's comments tonight. I realize that everybody's coming into this from different perspectives, but I just wanted to say from the perspective of Wall Intermediate School, we are ready to open. We need to get our kids back in school. Our administrators have been working no less than 13-hour days daily to get our kids back. And we've developed a schedule that is really good for everybody, whether you're coming in, whether you're virtual. And I really implore the board that if you have to make tough decisions, and maybe some schools aren't ready to open, that you look at us in isolation. We are ready. Our middle school kids, socially, emotionally, academically, need to get back in school. And I just hope that you consider that when you're making tough decisions. And we're ready. And Andy, I heard you. We have our video getting ready. I have pictures and videos for you. We have, we call our nurses suite, we're calling it Robert Wood Johnson, because we have our healthy room and our sick room and our medium room. We're ready. And I think we have to do what's right for our kids. I know everybody says that, but this is your time. We need to get back, and we're ready. So please let us open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Embaum. Thank you for your hard work at Intermediate School. We appreciate it. Okay. Here. Sheila?
Hi, thanks, Ralph.
Hi.
I would just first like to say that we really do appreciate the teachers and everything that they're doing, and also the board. I know that you are all volunteers, and this takes time away from your personal lives and your families. So thank you for doing that. With that said, I do think, though, that you need to listen to the teachers. If I've had the pleasure of working with some of those teachers that taught my son, and if specifically in Central, if they're saying Central's not ready to open, you need to step back and say they are the experts at that school and listen to them, because they know better than you or I at this point what is going on within those schools. So that's one comment. My next is that, and this is totally different, I still have to work full time. And so I'm not quite understanding why we're not trying to have some sort of semblance of quote unquote full-time hours for the kids. For example, 8:20 to 12:20 for my son, who is special needs, is not going to be enough time for him to really learn anything. So is there a thought process or an option at some point that if they get home, say at 1 o'clock, there will then either be tutors available, there will be extra help with his regular teachers available, there might be paras available to supplement this half-day schedule. He's already behind from the last 3 months of last year. A number of parents that I've been talking to are trying to form teaching pods. They're looking at tutors. And a lot of that can be very costly to families that are already stressing financially, because we're not able to work full time if we are with our kids while they're half virtually learning. So I think what you're going through and what we're all going through is very difficult. And I appreciate what you're doing, but we have to think about the educational level and supplementing this 4-hour time frame. He's not going to get through anything in 4 hours. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cassette?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. It's Samantha Bassett. Many parents and staff at Central have voiced their concerns about the ability to meet all of the minimum health and safety standards, specifically adequately social distancing at full capacity at Central, which would be several hundred students and staff before the pipe burst last weekend.
This has to be addressed. My oldest daughter is starting at WIS, and parents have already been assured in communication from Mrs. Embaum that in the hybrid model she's implementing, children will be distanced in their classrooms 6 feet or more with class size of 15 or less. We have had no such assurances from Central School. At almost a year to the day that the issues with the trailers were known to Central parents, it didn't go unnoticed that this time parents were notified quickly and that this board is committing publicly to handling this problem at Central differently, which is evident from your discussion tonight. Having said that, if the flooding affected both floors of the building and classrooms, I hope that you will conduct a comprehensive assessment of water intrusion and seepage into the floors, walls, and ceilings to ensure that it's going to be properly remediated and all necessary repairs are made. Nobody wants a repeat situation with the trailers where shortcuts are taken that impact the health and safety of our school community down the road in the form of mold. And I appreciate you making it clear tonight that that will not be the case. Everyone understands that it's going to take time for the damage at Central to be assessed, for work that might need to go out to be bid, and for whatever work and repairs that need to take place to be done properly. And so the timeline for Central and the ability for Central to open might be affected. If there's any chance, however small, that Central will not be ready for in-person instruction, I really urge you to let parents and staff know that tonight. We know a wrench has been thrown into the reopening plan that was already going to be challenging at Central, and families and staff need time to plan. It would be very stressful and unfair to both parents and educators to have this decision made without enough notice. If you could talk about whether the district has met all the requirements on the DOE checklist, and has the attestation for reopening schools been signed and submitted? And I also have the same question as Ms. Stites, that if children are in quarantine or a whole building is quarantined, or the county shuts us down, will children be automatically able to participate in virtual instruction if they are healthy enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capone?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys? Thank you for all the work you're putting into this. My name is Brittany Capone. I'm going into my 13th year as a kindergarten teacher at Central School. I'm also a proud Wall Township graduate of 2001. I've been on more committees this summer than I can count for reopening the Wall Township schools. I wanted to state that I feel that the elementary schools should go to a hybrid schedule, or at least push the start date back for the students. We at Central School have fallen on some hard times, and Central School has about 510 students plus staff. That will be more students than any other school in our district. I feel that switching to a hybrid schedule will contribute to the health and safety of our student body and staff. We should strive to be consistent with the high school and the intermediate school, as long as there's proper training and support. We need to give all students of Wall Township a safe environment to learn. I thank you for your time. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Ms. Tormey?
Hi, Ralph. Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
This is Beth Tormey. I'm a special education teacher at Central School. This is my 28th year at Central. I kind of feel like Mrs. Opelgard covered everything. So lucky you, I don't have to go through. Mrs. Opelgard did a fabulous job of taking all of my ideas away, but I did want to just reiterate maybe a couple of things that that she said. I am very concerned about the full capacity at elementary. Central School, as you've been hearing all night, is a very, very crowded school. I taught kindergarten and first grade last year, and literally when classes were changing, I couldn't even allow my little ones out in the hallway until the crowds went by, because it was just too dangerous for them to be out there. So I'm very concerned about how we can safely and effectively manage all of those kids in our very overcrowded school and still be able to implement all of the safety protocols that the government and the governor are requiring. But what I really just wanted to mention, you know, a school day for a teacher is not just teaching. Many of us have a lot of other jobs that keep that school functioning on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to kind of go along with what Mrs. Opelgard just talked about with the dreaded private transportation duty that she and I have had to endure for many, many years as special ed teachers at Central. Teachers that don't have homerooms are assigned those kinds of duties, both at the beginning and the end of the day. And I have to tell you, it is a frightening experience. Any of you who have sat on that line to pick up your children at Central School, you know what I'm talking about. It's really a challenging time. We've got buses, two-way traffic coming into that driveway all at the same time, children trying to walk across the walkway to walk home. I myself have been almost hit by a car 3 times in the many years I've been out there. I've witnessed 3 accidents between buses and cars. It is a very difficult situation. So really my reason for bringing this up is that these are the kinds of jobs that we teachers have to take care of in addition to teaching. And it's really hard for people outside of the school to understand that. So I would just like to ask you, with parents being given the option of waiving busing, have you considered the chaos that's going to reign now with even more cars lining up on Allenwood Road for a 4-hour day that might as well just stay there in the morning and just wait for their kids to come out 4 hours later, if we are at full capacity? I just find the traffic nightmare is going to be really, really dangerous. Just as an example of some of the other things that we have to deal with besides the teaching. And lastly, I just wanted to ask, and I don't know if you have answered this question, has the county approved our reopening plan? Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Disappeared. Jonathan?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I'd just like to mention to the board that tonight during this meeting, Notre Dame University closed down its facility. And this is the 2nd or 3rd major university in the United States that has done so within a couple of days of classes. Where I come from, that's called poor planning and or wishful thinking. It's certainly not the result any of us want, but it is increasingly becoming more and more aware and more obvious that the decision to go back every day that we're going to be putting our elementary students through is not a smart decision. This is not well thought out. We're seeing evidence, and although everyone's pointing to unproven and thus far still unknown lower transmission rates amongst different groups, we're finding more and more evidence that that may not necessarily be the truth. And we're going into this with evidence of older children in similar assemblies to those that we're about to put forth to our kids. And look what's happening. These schools are becoming examples. Notre Dame is now the school that didn't get it right. The University of Georgia is now the school that didn't get it right. UNC is now the school that didn't get it right. I think Wall needs to be the district that gets it right. Sending kids, elementary kids, 5 contiguous days. I've never been to Central School, but the concerns I hear about it left and right are very real and very loud. I have been in Old Mill. I can't possibly imagine how my daughter's school is going to provide 6 feet on any side of her desk in order to comply with state mandates. The evidence is mounting. It's getting larger every day. In 2 days, we are being asked to make a binding decision, as another gentleman pointed out, about our children and about sending our children into what may very well be the most dangerous situation we've ever been asked to send them into. The reconsideration should be given to that. A new look at new case examples from around the country should be looked at. And while I absolutely appreciate everything that this board has done and the time it's taken and the energy it has put into this plan, I cannot help but think that we need to keep very current and keep a very open eye to what's going on coast to coast. And it's basically telling us, don't do this. Just don't do this. Push it back. When your own teachers, the people on the ground, your front line, are telling you, you might want to reconsider this. I think you might want to reconsider it. Thank you again for your time, and thank you all for your dedication. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Is there anybody else for public comment that has not spoken yet? Trying to unmute this phone number. Good evening, 609 number.
Yes, hello.
Just your name for the record, please.
My name is Trish Peratt. I'm the mother of 2 children at Central School. I'm calling in because I don't know how we as parents can make a decision to send our kids into school when there's really not a concrete plan of what's going to happen should someone test positive. 10 days quarantine, does that mean 10 days counted against them? It seems like there's just not enough answers to make decisions, and we as parents are being pressured to make this decision in 2 days. There's limited information about these decisions. I really wish that the board and superintendent had considered a hybrid program for the elementary students. It feels like Central School is already overcrowded to begin with. Then we just now have a pipe burst and we're gonna throw 530 kids into a building with 85 teachers. It just seems really poor decision-making at this point to not even consider the hybrid program. So I do appreciate everyone who volunteers and hope you would consider either delaying Central's start date or a hybrid program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Lisa, are you?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes, good evening. Thank you very much for all the effort that everyone has put in. I'm
sorry, just your name for the record, please.
Lisa Rotilli.
Thank you.
My child's day starts when she gets onto that bus in the morning. To my knowledge, there's not going to be any temp checks prior to getting onto a bus. I have no idea how you can social distance on a bus. And if you think that students will wear masks on a bus, I highly doubt it. I think it's counterproductive to ask children to get on a bus and not have their temperature checked. A lot of parents push their kids to go to school when they're not feeling the greatest. We all know that. Just give it a try and see if you could make it through the day. And also, I have questions about my child at the WBFA and how that will affect her. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Sometimes unmute doesn't come off right away. Jennifer?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening. Just your name for the record, please.
This is Jennifer Brown, and I have 2 children who attend the high school. My son is a junior and my daughter is a sophomore. My son is very much looking forward to going back to school. My daughter would rather do virtual. I answered the survey stating that I wanted my children to go all virtual, the original survey. However, because I haven't been given any answers that give me specifics on what the virtual plan is going to be, I have not yet answered the new survey. I don't feel like I can make an educated decision based on the health of my children without knowing what is being offered for the virtual program. However, again, my son, as I mentioned, very much wants to go back to school in the building. So in all likelihood, I'm going to choose that option. But I don't know how I'm going to make that decision without knowing what the virtual program is and what is going to happen if, in fact, someone gets sick and we're going to quarantine again. We're not sure whether or not we're going to go to an all virtual program, if it's going to be live streamed, if we're going to be going to an outside source. It's just very, very difficult to make that decision. Additionally, if I'm going to waive transportation, my son is a new driver. He could drive to school. I did speak with someone at the school a few days ago asking about the Share the Keys program, and I did get an answer about that by email today. But if we're waiving transportation, doesn't that mean then that the parking spaces are going to be limited? And if that's the case, are we going to be making exceptions for where the juniors are going to be allowed to park? So those are my questions. I appreciate your time, and I am very grateful for the amount of work you've put in. I just don't feel like we're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing nobody else for, oh. Joshua?
Hello, sorry. I'll be the last one, hopefully.
That's okay. Just your name for the record, please.
My name's Josh Tennant. I'm a teacher at the high school, alumni and resident. Although I didn't originally want to speak tonight, I couldn't in good conscience not say something, given my concerns. A lot of this is reiterating what parents have said before, but with so few days to the start of our calendar, we do have what seems to be a broad framework to ensure we are compliant with the roadback documents. But what this looks like in a real sense to our students and staff remains unknown. How can parents make an informed decision on if they feel comfortable sending their child to school by this week without the building level details to the plan? The idiom, "the devil is in the details," could not be more important than when we're talking about the safety of our students and staff. Our parents deserve to know sooner rather than later things like what criteria are being used to determine how many students will be in a room, What cleaning practices will take place, how often and by whom? How will students avoid large congregations during arrival and dismissal, or during passing time between classes at upper levels, on buses, etc.? All this relevant information is germane to the parents making their decisions. And the fact that those details haven't been produced yet, this close to the start of school, makes me think, why are we rushing? Let's give ourselves the time that we need to get the specifics made public so that everyone, parents and staff alike, can make sure they're confident in the plan and in the decisions that they need to make. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Ms. Kendrick?
Yep. Well, sorry, Josh, you're not the last one, but you've saved the best for last. Michelle Kendrick, Wall High School, 35 years, art teacher. What I just would like to say is, in all these years of, first of all, I am dying to come back to school. I need to see my kids. I need to be in my classroom. But one of the biggest things that's been an issue all these years is you never know what you're coming back to. One year I came back and somebody decided to empty a supply closet on all my tables. Another year I came back and half my tables were gone. Another year you come back. So the anxiety levels at this point of the one thing, let me just slow down because I'm passionate about everything. The biggest problem is, and Josh can tell you the same thing, I teach a hands-on class and my physical space very much affects what I can and can't do, what my kids can and can't do. And I have had, we're going back to school in 10 days. Not a single person with art background has been part of the planning stage of the art rooms. No one at the high school. We have an arts chairperson and he's very well knowledged with music. And when he has questions about art, he comes to me. We have a supervisor who's only done music in an elementary and not at any public schools. So there is no expert in the art rooms. And we're the closest to our kids. We're the most interactive. How we're going to film or, kind of, in the classroom kind of thing. I talk maybe for 10 minutes in the beginning of class, and then the kids are hands-on and I walk around and I help and I, just field questions. So how does the kid in the virtual at home benefit from that? And with having zero plan or knowing what's going on, I've asked some questions to plan, but, and I understand that everybody is doing the best they can with the time we have, but I definitely, as a classroom teacher, I need input into what's going on with my class. When we did the renovations, they asked Joe Eichinger and I to come up with a plan. Here's what you want. Here's what the art teachers want. Here's what we need. And they did totally the opposite. We were supposed to have skylights. We have one. We were supposed to have art tables. There's science tables. We were supposed to have 5 sinks. There's 2. And again, it's because there was no input from the people who use the physical space as to what's going to work or what's not going to work. So I would like to at least have an appointment or know what's going on in the room so that I know what's going to work, because, I want my kids to be safe. I'm older. I want me to be safe. So those are just my concerns. And again, I'd be the first one there on the first day of school. But if we're not ready, maybe we need to push it back a week or 2 or just something, because it just seems like it's the high school and central school. And again, we can't make informed decisions. And not that I'm ever retiring soon, but we've also got high school teachers. We don't know our schedule. We know nothing. So you may even have more teachers who decide, based on this, maybe we're not coming back either. So without information, we just can't make the most informed decisions, myself included. What kind of supplies, and again, 10 days from now, it's hard. And I just hope that all of the professional development that's going to be put out there is going to be subject specific, because every teacher has different concerns. I've sat through so many professional developments that had absolutely nothing to do with the fields that I teach. So we just have to make sure it's specific to help us to make the decisions and to do the best for our kids. And I thank all of you for the toughest job that's out there. I wouldn't want any of your positions. So I do know the hours, the grueling, and it pulls at our heartstrings because we want the best. We want to do the best. We want to come back, but we want to be safe. So, and no one is ever going to agree with everybody. So unfortunately, you got to take the pot shots, but I have faith in this board, and I hope that we all make the right decisions for our kids. But I think we need some more teacher input at the high school for the people who are not involved. So thank you very much, and stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Hi, Carol.
Hi, this is Carol Swankowski, Old Mill School. I'm a Wall Township resident. I've put, my two children have gone through the Wall Township schools. I'm very concerned. As I said, I'm a music teacher, and the plan we have now puts us at nearly full capacity at the elementary level. We don't know exactly how many parents are choosing to go virtual. I've heard it actually isn't that many at Old Mill School. Now, I did hear tonight in the meeting that apparently it is safe at Old Mill School and we can do the social distancing. But I think we need to think about what that means developmentally for kindergarten through 5th grade students. In a classroom, that would mean they need to stay in their space. They need to stay in their space that whole time. Now, I understand there's going to be mask breaks outside and snack breaks, but when they're in their room, how appropriate is it for us to be asking our 5, 6, 7-year-old children, and even up through 11, to stay all in one space? Now, as I understand, my music room will not be available for music this year. I will be pushing into the classroom. I would like to also say that for the teachers that are pushing into the classroom, and I'm not afraid to say it publicly, it is terrifying. And we are being asked to be exposed to the entire school population and to every adult in that building. Now within that room, now that I'm there, I had asked back in, even before June, I said I would be thrilled to teach outdoors. Even if I could just have 10 minutes outside, my kids could sing, we could socially distance dance without touching. We can do all the appropriate things for elementary school age children. But now I'm in the classroom. We can't move the desks. We can't have any normal semblance of a music class. We're not even sure how I'm going to be able to project any images on the whiteboard, because that would require me to be in the teacher's space using their technology. They don't want me there, and I don't want to be there. And if I were to project onto the whiteboard, somehow the projector would have to be in the middle of the room. Then I'd have to be in the middle of the room. I'm not trying to whine. I'm really not. I have a fabulous record at Old Mill that I am very proud of. I love teaching. I love my students. I can't wait to be able to interact with them in whatever way I can. What I'm trying to say here is that, yes, you can put X's on the floor and have those kids stay in those spots. But is that what we want for our kids? Is that, without even a hybrid program, that it does not allow for children to be children? The other thing I would like to say is that a lot of the research is now, as has been mentioned, that the research is saying that we're not really sure about these spreading incidents with elementary age students. And even the studies that are saying, well, maybe they won't spread it, they are saying that our 10 and 11-year-old children are spreading at the same rates as adults. That's our 4th and 5th grade students in classes that sounds like they're going to be around 17, 18, 19 kids in a room. This is concerning. It should be concerning for every parent. You know, when I was back in remote teaching, I worked harder than I've ever worked, and I'm a hard worker. Those of you who know me, I love my students. I love teaching. I love being a music teacher in this town. I just think we need to do what's developmentally appropriate for our children. And making our children stay in little boxes all day and not be able to move, I do not feel is in the best interest of any of them. Okay, that's all I'm going to say, and I got it in before 5 minutes. Thank you all of you for this very late night and all of your work. I know we all want the best for our kids, and so I'll sign off. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Ms. Greener?
Hi, how are you all? My name is Jen Greener. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Old Mill School. I'm also a resident of Wall and a parent of an incoming 2nd grader and kindergartner at Old Mill. So as you can imagine, I'm very excited to have both of my daughters join me at Old Mill School. With that being said, my concern tonight is more, I put my parent hat on, I put my teacher hat on. And I have to say, I'm a little concerned that kindergarten orientation has been chosen to be virtual as opposed to in person. We have little kids who have never stepped foot inside these schools, and I feel like they should be awarded the same experience that previous kindergartners have gotten, that our 5th graders are now getting that are transitioning to 6th grade in the middle school with the Nights in Training program. It's a little worrisome that we are not starting small before we send all of us back just a few days later. I would like to think that we could have gotten creative as a district to perhaps let these kindergartners meet their teachers even outside. At the end of the school year, as a 5th grade teacher, it was great to see my students face to face and say goodbye, wish them well. And I just would have liked to see the same opportunity for my incoming kindergartner. Luckily she does get to go with me at times. So the building and the people are a little bit more familiar to her, but for the newbies, the newbie kindergartners, the newbie parents, I really would have liked to see a little bit more effort to be able to get our kindergarten kids some face-to-face time with their teachers, whether that be outdoors or just in smaller groups inside of the school. I think it's very overwhelming to expect that they are going to go back to school for their very first time and not at all get to see what that's going to be like on a smaller scale. I don't know if it's too late at this point, but as a parent, I am concerned that you're asking all of these kids to go back. And as a teacher, I'm also concerned because I say, well, why wouldn't we have taken baby steps and let these little ones at least be introduced to their teacher, at least get to see in person in very small groups what it's going to look like before we just send them all back. So again, as parent and teacher, I am able to separate sometimes, most of the time, different issues and concerns. And I love Wall. I love teaching in Wall. I love being a parent in Wall. But it's something that's kind of been weighing on my mind with going back to school and having that decision made. I don't think it was in the best interest of the incoming kindergartners. So I thank you for your time and looking forward to what this year will bring. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay. All right, we do not have anybody else. Okay, seeing no more public comment, closing public comment. Anybody on the board, any comments? No? Dr. Handerhan, anything? Dr. Gleason?
I just want to thank everyone for, staying involved and participating in a meeting that went as late as it did. And I thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I would like to, especially with respect to Central School with the issues that we're dealing with the pipe, that we will be sharing information as it becomes available. I just want to reiterate that. And also, as you know from watching this, if you saw this meeting earlier, that we are absolutely moving forward, with, I believe, tried and true guidance for really managing our gymnasium at the high school. So with that, I thank you for your participation, and I thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Gleason, did you have anything? You're muted.
I'd like to thank all of our school community for sharing their thoughts, their concerns. These are all important issues, and we're looking at each one of them. I know it's become a bit of a cliche that we're in uncharted territory, but we are looking at each of these items as we, as they're revealed by our school community, or as we see them in the development of the plan. And we've said from the beginning that the health and safety of our students and our staff will be first and foremost in the development of our plan. We're committed to that. I know that there are concerns and questions, and Dr. Handerhan and our school administrators, but we are going to continue to work long and hard as we bring together what we are committed to be a safe plan for reopening of our district.
Thank you. Mr. Smythe, did you have anything else you wanted to add tonight?
No, I did not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, thank you to everyone that stayed with us this evening. A lot of good comments this evening, a ton of good comments, and certainly a lot of things that we'll work on getting answers for and getting that information out there. Just to echo everything our administration has said, it is tough right now because the line keeps getting moved on us, and little things pop up that we have to deal with. But certainly, we said it before, and I've said it a million times, everyone's safety is our #1 concern, students, staff. So we will not do anything to put people in jeopardy at all. And we will do everything that's necessary to maintain safety. So with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Could I have a second? Second, Andy. All in favor? All right. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you to everyone that came.